Time is 12 noon. I wish to welcome you to the Superintendent's Workshop being held in the Joe N. Idelette Jr. TEC. I ask out of respect to everyone, please silence all electronic devices at this time. And also, if you have any material you wish to share with the board member, please give that to our Executive Assistant, Mrs. Morey. She's seated over there. We will take a break every 2 hours if needed before that. I'd like to recognize the Superintendent to explain the purpose of this workshop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of this workshop is to present items and have discussion with the board for items that will be coming before the board, ultimately for approval at a later workshop. We will begin with a presentation. I'll give an update to the board regarding our academic outcomes. The first time we've actually been convened since the outcomes have been released. But before I do that, we're going to start a new tradition, because I like traditions. As you all know, I was appointed to the State Superintendents Association earlier this month. And they had a convening about, not last Friday, but the previous Friday. And at that convening, they gave us these white cowboy hats. And when they gave us these white cowboy hats, they talked about putting on your white hat, being a gladiator, kind of off the show Scandal. If you ever seen that show, where you just had to go put on your white hat and act in the best interest of children. And I love that idea. So I thought, well, I'm going to give the white hat to one of these folks who are sitting at this table and do it on a monthly basis. And when I thought about that, I didn't realize how complex or hard that decision would be. Because at the end of the day, these folks are working around the clock at all times. I could give it to Kira, who has, in the last month, provided us more coverage about the great things this school district does than we've received in the last 3 years. I can give it to Bruce, who basically did a 10-day budget, did a budget in 10 days for $400 million, and has done an outstanding job of keeping everybody informed. On Friday, went crazy to modify a special board meeting at no fault of his own. I could give it to Beth for the work around our student services team and everything that she is leading. I can give it to Kelly for the alignment of our school improvement initiatives or our work around just continuous improvement and how much her team spends in schools, holding principals accountable and uplifting them. I can give it to Jaime, who in the last month has, come from Broward and is in the process of moving, but is fully integrated with his team and local law enforcement to be a part of this team. That only leaves one person, so our first white hat goes to Dr. Jacobs, who is, woo! You have to wear it during the meeting. And at the end of the day, she was our initial gladiator, and her job to align the energy of all of us up here to make sure that we're focused in on the things that this matters to this board the most is critically important. And the successes that I'm about to share with you, we as a community should celebrate, but it comes as a result of a strategic plan. It comes as a result of being extremely focused. It comes as a result of saying, hey, this is what we say we believe, but these are the actions that we're taking. We need to get back to what's important. So how she has supported me, and more importantly, how she has supported children in this district, there's no better person to wear the white hat for the first time than Dr. Jacobs. All right. And here's what's going to happen. And I promise you this is what's going to happen. At the end of this meeting, Dr. Jacobs is going to come and says, well, thank you. I know you just gave it to me, but you should have gave it to Jen Began. Because Jen Began has stepped up in a way that is absolutely out of control in terms of managing our 2 last retreats and managing community partners. Bruce is going to come and say, don't you dare give it to me. I want you to give it to Kim, because that Kia outside in the parking lot isn't broken down. It's Kim here all weekend long trying to make sure our budgets are done. Kelly's going to come in here and say, if you don't give it to Kim Garcia, for the work that she's done around school improvement and making sure that her team is focusing on our high yield strategies and making sure schools grow it, then you're giving it to the wrong person. Everyone here isn't going to want the white hat. They're not going to want it. But at the end of the day, they need to be acknowledged for their work. So that's why I thought it would be a great idea. All right, let's talk about academic outcomes.
Congratulations.
All right. A little extra thing. So what I'll do, board, is briefly go over our outcomes for this last school year and then kind of set the stage for the work that lies ahead. So overarching results, when you look at our state rankings from 3rd through 10th grade ELA scores, we have gone from 31, 18, 19, we used that. That was the last year before the full accountability, and the last year they had outcomes prior to my arrival. So we went from 31st to 10th in state rankings, so we're extremely proud of that work. When you pull out 3rd grade, we are able to hit 71%, which takes us from 38 to one of districts who, the 71 is one of two, but it's the second highest score in the state of Florida. Absolute outstanding outcome. When you look at mathematics, grade 3 through 8, algebra and geometry, that's what they used for the state grade, 36 to 14, which we're really proud of that, considering we make sure our middle school students who are 3 or above have the opportunity to go in high school courses. So if we weren't doing that, we'd probably be 1 or 2. Science, which is 5th grade, 8th grade, and biology, once again, 35th to 5, improvement of 30 state rankings, absolutely outstanding. And then social studies, I'm sorry, I was so excited about it, I skipped it. Social studies, which is civics, U.S. history. You know, we spoke a lot about civics last year. We were able to improve 30 state rankings from 38 to 8. So very, very proud of those outcomes. Middle school acceleration, this is a big one. This talks about our level of access that we provide to all students. If you have a score, you're going to put you in the class. Algebra and geometry, 56 to number 2 in the state. So very, very excited about these specific outcomes. Now, in looking at these scores, this is English language arts and combined mathematics. This is all kids. The data that I showed before in the previous screens was the accountability kids, meaning when you do the state grade, you have to be here in October and February. That's how they use to calculate the school grade. Those are those rankings. This is, whoa, oh my goodness. Don't look, close your eyes. Oh, Devin, no! Okay, I don't know what happened there. This looks at all students who took the test regardless of the day they enrolled. So there's a couple things to look at. If you look at the bottom, and I specifically want to draw your attention to 22-23, which was the first time we received an A in a very, very, very long time. So 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25, all assessed as a district. But if you look at the rate of growth, for total students 48 to 60, that's back-to-back significant improvement. Hispanic 41 to 53. Black 33 to 49 over the course of the last 5 years, 16 percentage point increase, and then white 59 to 69. So you're seeing growth at every every category, which is exactly what we want to see, and the groups that are lowest are growing at a faster rate, ultimately catching up, because obviously the more proficient students you have, it's going to grow at a slower rate. Same exact thing for math. Once again, I'm not going back to 18, 19, but just to set up some future slides, 18, 19 is pre-pandemic. We are exceeding pre-pandemic for the last 2 years. And I'm going to show you a slide where other districts are still waiting to get to where they were before the pandemic. Math, once again, significant improvement over the last 3 years, 62 to 71, and white, black, 35 to 48, Hispanic, 45 to 58, and a total 52 to 62. We came into the opening of last school year, really hyper-focused in on the things that we needed to address because we had such a high rate of growth from 22, 23 to 24, 23, 24. And what I was saying at that time, typically there's this yo-yo effect where you go up 1 year, you go down the next year, and we had to break that perception. We had to say that's absolutely not the truth. We can continue to compound our success if we're very strategic and compound our strategy and not walk away from something, build something to a sustainable practice, and continue to move forward. Now you look at it a little bit different, so now we're not comparing ourselves to ourselves, we're comparing ourselves to other districts. Once again, across the board, just significant improvements in state rankings, regardless of ethnicity. If you just look at the totals, 25 state ranking improvement in ELA, combined math, 23% state ranking. So very, very excited about that. So where does that put us in terms of our state rankings this year? We were 38 of 67 in 18-19. When you look at us now, we are now number 5 in the state top 5 school district. When you look at the top 3 districts and you look at their percent of free and reduced lunch, they're in the 40s. And when you look at the school district of Indian River County at number 5, we're in the mid-60s. So we're doing some absolutely outstanding work in the school system. This is a slide you all have seen since I have been here. I use this slide really to agitate us as a community not to be satisfied with our current results. And obviously the board wasn't because you hired a new superintendent. But you look at Charlotte and Martin and Indian River County, all 3 of us, same size districts, same basic number of schools, same breakdown in who our students are and how we serve them. But yet we were majority C schools where both of those other 2 districts are outperforming us. And then Brevard, which is above us, significantly larger than us, but above us. And then Miami-Dade. I use Miami-Dade because that was the district in which I came from. And what I was saying there is how come Miami-Dade is outperforming in terms of A, Bs, and Cs the other districts when the rate of poverty, the number of language spoken is significantly more. And part of that answer was unwavering belief. So if you look at where all of those systems were, and then you look at where we are now, woo, yeah, hold on, I'll do that again. You see one thing that's significantly different. We do not have any C schools. All of our A schools, we went from 4 A schools to every school being A with the exception of 3. And you look at the other districts, some of them are still trying to get to where they were before the pandemic. So this is a reflection of what your community of educators are doing in this town. When you look at the percent of A and B schools, 100% A and Bs as compared to only 47% in 18-19. When you look at things that no one said it could be done, Dodgertown is now an A school, which we're very, very proud of them. Significant focus around making sure all students learn at that school. Glendale has moved to a very high A, proud of them, going from a B. Vero Beach Elementary School went from a B to an A. Gifford Middle School, when I got here, I was told middle schools can't be an A. It's just how the system works. It's how the grading calculations work. Well, that's no longer the case because Gifford Middle School is an A. Sebastian River Middle is an A. Storm Grove Middle is an A. And Oslo, although it's not an A, went from the lowest possible B that you can have to a 1.5 away from being an A. Significant growth for them as well. And they had a number of challenges regarding teacher openings over the course of the year. So they're a B, but we're super proud of the work that they did. Sebastian River High School is an A school, one of 2 A schools in our community. The other one is Vero Beach Senior High School. And then when you look at all of these schools that maintain their A. So we do not have a school that regressed in letter grade. Every school either maintained their grade or moved to an A or maintained the B that they had the previous year. Significant focus and significant outcomes. Some individual highlights, as you know, Beachland hit 91% achievement in 3rd grade. So they set the course. They let us know it can be done. So we have established goals for all of our schools, and a number of schools are expected to come in at 90% next year. Liberty hit 89%, proud of them. Little old Indian River Academy, a traditional school, top 4% in the state in science achievement at 85%. So once again, IRA has set the pace, and we need to follow suit. And this right here is a slide that I shared with all of the leadership teams. And basically it identifies our expected growth, the goals that I have set for myself. You'll see these again when it comes to my evaluation and our strategic plan. But at the end of 25-26, this is our desired outcomes, which would be an improvement of 51 points in the highest #1 district in the state of Florida, is around 885, 886. So it gives us a pathway to be number 1. And as we as a team, and the team not being this team, but the team being each and every single leadership team collectively disaggregated this data, it's very, very doable. And when you compare it to the rate of growth that we had the previous year, and the year prior to that, this is just par for the course for us. If we continue our rate of improvement, this isn't aspirational. This isn't some, maybe this could happen. If we're very strategic and focused in on our opportunities for improvement. Our opportunities for improvement, not to take you too deep, but our 26th to 50th percentile student in reading and math. Not our lowest 25%. We're number 1 in the state in reading, and lowest 25% in reading, I think 4 or 5 in math, but there is an opportunity to go from about 60, 64, and increase that 26th to 50th percentile student. And then in core instruction, the 75th to 100th percentile, our highest achieving students, they all maintain proficiency, but we need to be a little bit more strategic and provide more rigorous instruction for them. Ask their teachers to ask the students to do a little bit more to maintain a year's worth of growth. So at the end of the day, even though you look at these specific numbers, the challenge that we set out over the last 2 weeks, and we'll talk about how we set that challenge out, really was to organize ourselves to be the district that holds ourselves accountable to ensure all students have a year's worth of growth. All students have a year's worth of growth. And that's the work that we're doing. So in terms of some things that are ongoing over the last couple months, I want you to look at my SDRC app. We've pushed this out. This is the school district of Indian River County in your hand. We are very, very excited to improve the opportunity to connect and engage with parents in real-time ways, the ways they're used to doing it. So we're very, very excited about that. Everything they're going to need designed and specific to their tailored school or schools will help keep them informed. 2 weeks ago, we had our district leadership professional development. This was a focused day of development for all of us at the district office. What are we doing? How are we doing it? How does it connect to our strategic goals? And how do we ensure that we're making the life of the principal and teachers easier? A very, very focused, hard day that ensured that we ourselves, as the district office, was ready to step out and support our district teams. Here is Engage, 3 full, long days of development, and this is where we spent the entire 3 days looking at their outcomes from last year and creating very specific, granular steps that are unique to each and every single school to make sure those outcomes that I just discussed for the upcoming year are absolutely on point. And I've been doing 3-day retreats since 2014. And this level of conversation and dialogue and specificity, just kind of going over to groups and listening in, gives me all the confidence in the world that these school site leadership teams believe in the work that they're doing and clearly can define how they're going to be able to do this work. We started that morning. Mr. E is on fire right there trying to win. We started this they told me how they were going to do this. I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit back and watch. We challenged them at the end of the school year to be able to build a boat out of cardboard and then race that boat of cardboard in the Gifford Pool at 8 o'clock in the morning last Wednesday. And some of the boats that they built and how fast they were able to move was absolutely outstanding. Some of them fell right to the floor. And then this was me in a very colorful shirt, kicking us off during that 3-day retreat. Kira, like as I already said, Kira's been doing an absolutely outstanding job messaging what is new for our school system and sharing some of the celebrations and success over the last couple months. And then I just want to end on our 3 priorities as we drive into the school year. And we are connected by community. And the biggest words there is we thrive together. Whether it be at a school site, whether it be a leadership team, the more connected we are as a community and supporting and investing in one another, the better we will be connected to our community. And we have very, very strategic goals that we're pushing out to connect and engage with our community. We'll be engaging, and you all have heard me talk about our pillar events. These are events that we as a community will celebrate and align the initiatives to ensure, and orientation is probably our best example. We set a high expectation regarding what orientation should look like. I went and filmed a number of different messages specific to each grade level, and we'll be marketing and advertising across the entire community to make sure every parent has the opportunity to have the day off, for the boss give them a few hours, because it's so important to be at orientation, and it is so important for us to have that first great impression with our parents on that. And we'll be pushing out these pillar events in our entire community throughout the school year. Fueled by innovation, we challenge what's possible. And when I say this, where we are today was intentional. We needed to get to this point in order to reinvent the experience for our children. Over the last 5 years, we've been readying ourselves to prepare ourselves to completely embrace a new way of thinking, to recreate the experience that is addressing what parents demand, and creating it in order to ensure that all students are prepared to graduate and go on and maximize their full potential. And then driven by leadership, and what's key here, we lead at every level. It's not me, it's not this team, it's just not principals. It's defining the opportunities to lead within every position in the school system, defining what authority those individuals have, which decisions they're empowered to make, and spark great conversations and ideas to continue to drive this system forward. And I can tell you now, with the focus that we have put in on our principals and assistant principals, they will drive innovation because we have driven and invested in leadership for them. So they are ready and already creating new ways of doing this work in connection with their teachers based on their desire to lead and to innovate. That concludes this presentation. So thank you for allowing me to share some of the great work that we've done in the past, and more importantly, the great work that we will do for this upcoming school year. So thank you.
Fantastic.
All right, first on the agenda is Jaime. You're up, brother.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. This is in accordance with Florida State Statute 106107. As a district school safety specialist, I'm assigned to report to the board quarterly update on the progress of our school safety for the district. So far, during the last quarter, Mr. Tetsky, as the formally assigned school safety specialist, he conducted 53% of the school's inspections on 13.
It's on now. It's on.
Is that on?
Yes.
It's on now.
It was on now.
Okay. So, do I need to start over?
No.
Okay. So, Mr. Tetsky conducted 53% of the checks of our schools, including charters as well. And 13 out of the 15 were in 100% compliance. The two schools there were two schools that were found to have drills that were a little late in getting those accomplished. So to address this finding, we'll be entering our drills into a leadership hub, so to make sure that we can keep an eye on drills being entered, and also I'll be monitoring those on a monthly basis. During this same quarter, which is the last fourth quarter, the Office of Safe Schools conducted about 10% checks on our schools, which is about 3 of them, and all those 3 schools were in 100% compliance. That is my update.
Thank you, and welcome to the team. Nice fit. Mr. Green.
If we could put up the budget workshop, board members, you have a copy in front of you. So budget update number 4. So as you know, this has been a long budget season. So we finally got our certified numbers on July 18th, Friday. So while the state has been working on the budget, starting with the long-range financial outlook on September 6th for almost a year, we've had the last 10 days to put together all of the final numbers, the ads, the trim ads, the packet that you have in this workshop. So with that, we're going to go through some updates today and try to update our community where we're at and prep you for the tentative budget hearing tomorrow. So it looks like a very long agenda, but some of these things are going to go quickly. Some are review. We're going to talk about update on the federal funds. We're going to go over the FEFP, the Florida Educational Finance Program. We've seen it before on last year's budget. Now we'll have some final numbers we can plug in. We're going to look at a comparison based on board member feedback. We're going to look at a comparison of second calc last year to second calc this year in many, many areas so we can see comparison year over year. We're going to go over the development timeline. We're going to look at the tentative budget. We're going to look at the truth and millage ads. And we're going to look at prep for the resolutions in the public hearing and then have some questions and dialogue. As always, I like to put in the acronyms. There's some new ones at the bottom like the PPFMA. One of the things we were waiting on was a prior period funding millage adjustment, which we received on the 18th as certified, so we'll talk about that. And the RLE, the required local effort that you must levy in order to receive your state funding. So you saw this before on last year's budget. We're just going to go through it quickly, but this is kind of a visual summary of that FEFP and how it works through. It takes our students, unweighted students, and to be clear, that is traditional, charter, and family empowerment. That's all of the FTE within the school district of Indian River County. That was 18,126, I believe, last year, 18,125. So down just a little bit, and we're going to see comparisons of those on the next slide. Those students are multiplied by cost factors, depending on the program that they're in, to give you weighted students, weighted full-time students. That's multiplied by the base student allocation. Last year, the base student allocation was 53.30.98. This year, it's 53.72.60 for $41.60 increase. The comparable wage factor and the small district factors are negligible to us. They don't apply. They're either 1 or 0, which brings us to a total base funding of $103 million. You'll see a comparison last year. That was $105 million, so down about $2 million in base funding. You then add back your categoricals, safe schools, your ESC guaranteed, your educational enrichment, which used to be your SAI dollars. We don't have a DJJ supplement, your transportation allocation. Federally connected students do not apply, your mental health, and new this year, traditionally you've seen, and the board had requested some information, and you looked at how in 23-24, some of the categoricals, like the teacher classroom supply, the teacher salary increase, the reading categoricals that were above the base funding were rolled into the BSA. So the BSA in that year went up like $537. This year it went up $41. Though this year, the add-on weighted FTE for AP, IB, all of those accelerated dual enrollment that we heard we was going to take a 50% reduction, they've actually taken that funding, and instead of having added weight on FTE in the FEFP, they've rolled it out so they've moved it back out as a categorical. And we'll look at that in a minute, and we'll compare that to last year. These are actually two things, a state-funded discretionary contribution and a 0.748 mil compression. If your 0.748 in a district doesn't equal the state average, the state gives you a compression to bring you up to the state average. The state-funded discretionary contribution is for districts with lab schools, and that gives them the 0.748 mil compression equal value through state funding rather than local funding. Brings you to a gross of 125 million, roughly 124 million gross local and state FEFP. When you back out the required local effort, meaning the amount you are required as a board to levy to the taxpayers of Indian River County through local dollars, that brings you to, it's about 100 million, that brings you to a net state FEFP of $24 million. Just remembering that in that $24 million is also included $20.4 million for family empowerment scholarships. So if you were to deduct $20.4 million, you'd be at about $20.2 million, or a $4.2 million total net state FEFP. If you think about the entire budget of $418 million, that's about 1%. Then you add back the special categorical of class size reduction, which is funded partially through the Educational Enhancement Trust Fund, which are the lottery dollars, and the tax on the casinos in Miami and Broward counties. Most of it is funded through the general revenue. You add back the state-funded discretionary supplement. So just like the lab schools that get the .748, that is an add back state funds. We never see it, but it's an add back of the .748 for the family empowerment students. That is state funding. For a total state funding of $45 million, remembering that 20.4 of those are family empowerment dollars that do not come to us. Plus, add back your required local effort, add back your .748 discretionary effort, and you have a total FEFP state and local funding of $170 million. Last year, that was about $166 million, so roughly $3.7 million increase in the total state and local funding, with the bulk of that coming from local increases. Do the boxes with it. There we go. So just some comparisons from year to year. This is your millage rates. Tomorrow you'll be adopting your tentative millage rates, and they're broken into 3 sections. The state law millage rate, the first one is your required local effort from the first calc. Last year it was 3.004 mil. On the first calc it was 2.990 mil, for a slight decrease. When the second calc was released on the 18th, it actually went up to 2.99 mil. That's why and that makes a difference. That looks like a very small number, 0.005, but it's of $34.6 billion taxable assessed value. So it does make a difference in the budget. And then also at the same time, outside the required local effort, we received our prior period funding millage adjustment. So what happens is, you are required to collect your required local effort. You're required to levy that and collect it. They look back and see if your revenue collected it or not. If it didn't collect it, up or down, they adjust you through that prior period funding adjustment. So we didn't collect it all, so they've added a .006 in this year's budget for you to collect last year's unrealized budget on the RLE. So at the end of the day, this total state law millage rate actually came out to exactly the same as last year. So there will be no increase in the state law millage rate. The local board discretionary millages, you have your capital outlay, as the board had requested previously. You looked at information back as far as 2010, when it used to be 2 mil money, and there was about $150 million less in funding when it went down to 1.5 mils over that time. Remembering that we're in year 3 of starting to fund the charter schools pro rata share. The charter schools get a charter school capital outlay right now. It's about $1.4 million, $1.6 million through the state. We are now shifting. It's a 5-year plan. In year 1, 20%, 40%. We're in the 60% phase. So charter schools are roughly 14% of our population, so 14% of that capital, 1.5 mil, and then 2 more years, it'll be 100% of their pro rata share, or their 14% will be funded out of that 1.5 mil. Your .748 discretionary millage, and as you saw on the slide before, it's called the discretionary millage, but when you look at the FEFP, it's baked in. That's part of the funding structure when you get your total state and local. That millage rate is exactly the same, no difference, 2.248. And then we have a 4-year voter-approved millage that just renewed on July 1st. Last year it was 0.5. This year it's 0.5. So for all millage rates, and the school board is capped at a max of 10 mil, you cannot levy more than 10 mil. You are at 5.753, and you are levying the exact same millage rate you did last year. The dollars will be higher, you will see on the next slide, as the taxable assessed value has increased. So for example, your 0.5 voter approved millage will generate some more dollars to help pay for the salary and benefit increases for the salaries that are on that millage. When we take a look on the next slide, we'll look at the base funding. If you remember, back when the governor's budget came out in February, it was around $95 increase in the BSA. As we went through our budget workshops, we saw the Senate proposed $67, the House proposed $50. After the arm wrestling was done and they came to their conference report, it ended up at $41.62. Just to put that in perspective, if you take our 18,000 students you saw FTE at the beginning, take off the 2233 for family empowerment, take off the 2200 for charter schools, you're at about 13,500 students. Multiply that by 4162 is about $567,000. The teacher salary increase alone is $561,000. That's a categorical in our BSA. So that base basically covers the teacher salary increase allocation requirement within the budget. The base funding you will see from 105 to 103, or about a $2 million decrease. If we look at our FTE overall and our family empowerment scholarships, you'll see the unweighted FTE at 18,125 to 18,4569, or a decrease of about 80 FTE overall. A larger decrease in the weighted, and because there were over 400 weighted FTE in the advanced accelerated, the AP, the IB, and dual enrollment, but because those are now out as a categorical, reduces your weighted FTE here, you're just getting it as a categorical. The family empowerment scholarships at the beginning of last year in the second calc was 1672. They are now 2233, or an increase of 561. And the funding from $14.8 million to $20.4 million, or $5.6 million increase. And if you remember, in the middle of the year, that 1672 went to 1850 after we got our October count, and we did that $2.7 million adjustment in the middle of the year. So we reduced the budget, we reduced discretionary, we reduced all of those expenditures to get us to 1850, and going into this year, it now will be 2233.
And
Yes.
is it still holding true to our knowledge that about 70% of those scholarships or vouchers have never been in public schools? Do we know how many vouchers went from public school to private or homeschool versus how many went to kids that were never in public school?
You know, those numbers I still hold true back from October, and unfortunately, that's the last numbers I have. I don't have the fourth calculation, which would be off February numbers. So these again, and I tell people when I present on the budget, the first calc is all predictions. There's not a solid number. The second calc at least firms up our taxable assessed value and our millage rates. That number is yet to materialize, and we haven't been shared that data yet because they're not really enrolled and we don't have that data file yet. So probably from October is still valid. Once we start the year and we get a membership file back, or we get the fourth calc, we'll be able to break that down for you.
So basically, what that is saying, that there is around $14 million coming from the school budget for kids that were never in public. In other words, they were unfunded. They were never funded in public schools, but now they're being taken away from the public school budgets because of the FES.
Yes, and they are funding it through the FEFP. They're funding it through state dollars. That's why you see the additional, the local dollars can't pay for that. So that's why you probably see the state dollars decreasing for us, because they're funding it through state dollars.
Right.
They can't
That's
fund that through
exactly
local.
right.
But
So
they
we're-
do fund that through that base student allocation when they give it to the 18,000.
And they've been throwing things into
students.
base student allocation so they can take more for the scholarships away from the base allocation. The categorical is going to the base allocation, gives them more money to take more scholarships from the vouchers from schools. So that's what's going on. It's a little bit of a sleight of hand, because if you looked at it originally, to me, it looked like that we were up about $14 million. But when you look at that with the categoricals that they'd taken away was $7 million, and then you take away $14 million, even though it looks like we have a big increase, we basically have a decrease. The way I do the calculations, I could be wrong, but I believe that's correct.
Yes.
Can I
Yes.
I'm not sure if we're ever going to get those numbers, the numbers that I think you're asking about, Mr. Dyer, because for example, we have parents, families in our community who have been homeschooling for eons. And their children have never, ever stepped foot in a public school system, but they're still taxpayers and they're still their monies are still going to, were for many years going towards public school, towards our public schools. However, I think what you're asking is, are those numbers, are those people, will we ever see an accountability of some sort for those families who may have never been in our school system? And I don't know if we'll ever know that. From
Well,
our point, from the moment that the Florida Empowerment Scholarships began, I think from that moment till today, we might be able to find how many of our students left public school for Florida Empowerment. And I only say that because there's a huge disconnect in communication between the Florida Family Empowerment Office and the school district. That all needs to get ironed out. I know it's all new, but I don't know, I think there's a difference in your question, and honestly, I'm not sure if we're ever gonna get that answer.
There's two pieces, you're correct. Accountability is one thing. I think if we put accountability in for private schools and for homeschooling, I think that would solve some of the problem. But the fact is that public schools were based on the public school funding with the kids that were in the school. And when you fund the mandate from the state was basically an unfunded mandate, and they had to figure out how to pay for it when it exploded. It started as to get kids out of failing public schools, D and F schools, and give them an avenue for their parents to say, we will support you to go to another school that's a better environment for your child. And it just exploded, and what happened as a result, since it was never funded for those kids, were never funded over and above by the state, it was taken away from the public school pot. And that is the problem, and that's a fact if you want to follow it down. That's what happened. They didn't fund it, it's a sleight of hand. We're going to give you money over here, but we're taking it away over here. It's still defunding a lot of public schools.
Dr. Jones?
Yeah.
Mr. Green, have we ever received the fourth count FTE?
No, we have not gotten the fourth calc. The fourth calc would be based on Survey 3 or February. So one of the challenges is we are presenting a balanced budget as we must, and we don't know how we will end. You'll see in a minute, I won't be able to tell you what the add-on weighted FTE is because I only know October's number. So it's hard to compare if the $2.6 million new allocation is equal to what we would have earned. But we have the second calc of this budget, and we are moving forward.
Just one comment, and I'll bring this up later in one of the discussion items, but I'm glad you brought that up with the $41 for the base student allocation, receiving $567,000, and our teacher salary increase is $561,000. So it's pretty tough to, that $41 is pretty tough to swallow. But also, when we look at just in general, what Ms. Rosario and Mr. Dyer were just talking about, with when family empowerment started, and I think there are about 16 states who do that now. We still have, I think, 150 students that were missing and thousands in the state. And I've talked to my representative and senator about this, who they still can't find. So the accountability needs to step up, not only for the public schools, so we know what's going on, but for our community.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is just a comparison of some of the categoricals that are in the FEFP, just seeing second calc last year to second calc this year, and with a slight decrease in FTE. Those things are, most of these have a base. Safe Schools has a base, and then there's adjustment. So you might get $250,000 base, and then there's adjustment for FTE. So they do have a different formula for each one of them, but you'll see slight differences up and down, ESE up, transportation up, Safe Schools, and SAI funds, mental health down just slightly with that FTE adjustment. Class size down, as you can imagine, with that aligns to student enrollment, and the state-funded discretionary supplement up. And again, that's the funding of the .748 that we do locally through local dollars, through state funding to offset the family empowerments as they do the lab schools. The academic acceleration option categorical of 2.6, I can tell you off of October's numbers, it was around 2.4 million for all, it was for all of the FTE that we would have generated as add-on FTE, but we have fourth calc and then there's summer, so not until I get the fourth and fifth calc will I be able to tell you what those add-on FTE comparisons were. Just a timeline of where we've been and where we're going. Starting back in September, the state budget committee, they adopted the state long-range financial outlook that said, hey, last year okay, this year maybe okay, and then look out for some TAV adjustments going forward. The governor on February announced his budget with a full FEFP calculation with the $95 increase. We had a budget update on March where we shared that stuff, and then on March 28th, the House of Representatives, the Senate, they both put out their plans, very different. One of them had the family empowerment totally funded outside of the FEFP, different numbers on the teacher salary increase, one of $600,000, one of $900,000. They ended up at $561,000. April, another budget workshop where we updated all of that. Budget number 3 on May 19th, where we updated again. Very little information at that one because the budget had not been finished and we were waiting till June for the conference report was released on June 13th. The year prior, that came out in March. Draft tentative truth and millage ads presented at the board meeting on July 15th. On the 18th, late in the afternoon, we received the certified, so 10 days ago, we received the certified millage rates, as you saw, which are exactly the same. We received the second calculation, which told us how we're going to be funded. On July 27th, the trim advertisements were posted in the Treasure Coast newspapers, the Indian River Press Journal. They were actually published on the 25th Friday, and as you got a memo, one of the ads was inadvertently placed not at our direction, but inadvertently placed 2 pages earlier, and they must be adjacent. So the Press Journal was able to get that redone on Sunday. The ad ran this morning, and I got it. It's all laid out correctly. So we have our 2-day waiting period now, which brings us to moving our tentative budget hearing on the millage and budget to tomorrow at 5:01 p.m. That was originally scheduled for this evening. Today we're having our budget update number 4. Tomorrow we'll have our first public hearing on the tentative millage rates, where those rates that I just shared with you, you'll adopt them through a resolution. They are set, the required local effort, that's what you're required to levy, and the tentative budget that it generates, and just the dollars that those fundings generate. August 25th, we'll have another budget update leading into September 9th, where we'll have our second public and final hearing on the final budget and the final millage. So looking at that tentative budget, and you received a packet on Friday in your email, this is from that packet. This is the tentative budget across all funds. We looked at last year's early on, just how it's broken down, and if you'll remember, about 1% of the budget is our extended day or enterprise, the smallest slice. That is parents and guardians paying for before and after care. That's a self-funded fund. You have your internal service, that's your health insurance fund, $38 million or about 9%. You pay $747 per employee per month towards that as a board. The employees pay the rest of that. We have a health clinic that we pay for. The federal funds are broken into 2 slices, food service and then other federal such as IDEA and the entitlements, and we'll talk more about those. 3% on the federal, food service 2%. Capital projects about 20%, $85 million. We bring in about 50, so you'll see there's a fund balance and those are projects rolling over. Your debt service, we just paid off one of the COPs last summer. We'll be paying off another one next summer, and we're on schedule by 33 to pay off all debt if we don't take any debt prior to then. We'll look at that when we go a little bit deeper into the tentative budget for the general operating, which the bulk of that comes through that FEFP that you just looked at, that $238 million or 57% of that. Just remembering your fund balance ended up around $31 million, $181,000 less than last year, so 17% to 17%, so that's great. You ended right where you were. So 31 million of that is fund balance, 20.4 million of that is family empowerment, and 24 million of that is charter schools. So that backs you down to your FEFP for a total tentative budget of all funds, $418 million. Just comparing that year to year by the funds that you must adopt. The general operating fund up $4.4 million, and that is from local dollars. You saw the family empowerment was up from 14.8 to 20, so you saw the differences where that funding is. Debt service down a little bit as we pay it off. Capital up a little bit as we've beefed up our capital for some extra security and safety projects as feedback from the board. We've got food service as we have a little bit smaller enrollment. We've adjusted that budget accordingly. Your federal dollars down, that has nothing to do with all of the stuff we're going to talk about with federal. All of those federal entitlements this year are built into the budget. That's basically the ESSER and error dollars, ARP dollars rolling out. They went into September, so they actually went into this year's budget, if you recall. So that's the fade out of that $46 million over those 3-4 year period. So we have expended and collected all of that. Health insurance up a little bit, just rates having to go up just a little bit. Enterprise fund, that's your extended day, going up a little bit as we've made some adjustments to their staffing and expenditures. So at the end of the day, $408 million to $418 million, $10 million, or a 3% increase in the overall budget. Just an update on those federal funds. As you remember, on June 30th at about 4 o'clock, the federal DOE announced they were withholding about $7 billion, just over $400 million for Florida. It was $1.6 million for SDIRC. That was Title II, Title III, Title IV, and Adult Ed. July 1st, they announced our Title I funds, which were not under review, would be released. That allocation was released with a little bit larger than normal reduction. You always get a reduction from your preliminary to your final, but it might be 1 or 2%. That was a 6% reduction, or $275,000. We made those adjustments to the Title I budgets. On the 15th, superintendents were notified via email of the preliminary IDEA Part B funding being released. July 18th, they released $1.3 billion in the 21st century, which didn't affect us. It was one that that's for after-school programs in the community and summer school. And then on July 25th, they released the remaining $5.5 billion in federal funds, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and Adult Ed. So we were fortunate in that we had rollover dollars in those funds. We got permission early on to leverage those rollover dollars, and it was summer, so not a lot of the teachers and positions had started. The ones that did, we were able to leverage those rollover dollars and had some plans in place, and fortunately, we won't have to implement all of those plans because those funds have now been released, so we will be moving forward as planned, as you approved on June 16th when you did the entitlements. Truth in millage advertisements, you're not supposed to be able to read those. It's just a picture of the 3 ads that you are required to publish. Your first one is your capital outlay. You have to tell the community what you're going to spend your $1.5 on, your $1.5 million, which generates about $49 million. Buses, people, salaries and benefits of the people that support it, maintenance, repairs, painting, all the projects that are happening over this summer. When there is a tax increase, although your millage rates are exactly the same, you must notice to the community that you're having a tax increase. This tax increase is actually compared to what's called the rollback rate. You'll have a resolution tomorrow. The rollback rate is the rate of millage that you would levy to keep exactly the same funds coming in. Not that you could do it, because you can't go less than the required local effort. Your 1.5 mil is already shared, and your 0.748 mil is baked into the formula. But you have to tell the community that if we were to levy 5.5 mil, 5.50, it would be the same. So it's a 4.42% increase, and that's because the taxable assessed value is up from 33.6 to 34.6 billion. And then you have your budget summary. That is your tentative budget. If you go to many districts across the state, their tentative budget is simply that one page. That is the tentative budget that you'll be adopting per state statute that shows across the funds the millage rates at the top. You'll be adopting 2 resolutions tomorrow evening at 5:01. One of them is the millage rates we just talked about, the 3.0050, your discretionary millage, your capital outlay, your voter approved for a total of 5.73, and the dollars that it generates. And then you will be adopting a resolution for your tentative budget in the amount of $418,705,881. And with that, tomorrow evening, we'll have a public hearing at 5:01 on the tentative millage rates and tentative budget. We'll reconvene on August 25th. We are like right in the middle of closing out last year. We are getting invoices in from food service for food that we ordered and paying bills. We're getting trickle-in revenue from the tax collector. So we have yet to close out last year's budget. That's why this is a tentative budget. So there will be some changes that will come. They'll be minor, but the numbers will shift a little bit. The millage rate will not change. Those millage rates are set. The FEFP is set. It'll just be how our budget compares. We'll talk about that on the 25th. And then on September 9th at 5:01, we'll have a second public hearing where you will adopt the final millage and final budget. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll open it up for questions.
Okay, questions, board members? Dr. Posca.
So I'd like to ask, how much funding does the 0.5 voter-approved millage add to the budget in the new budget? And how much did it add in last year's budget?
So it's up about $1 million, and so the taxable assessed value this year is $35.6 billion. A mill is $1 on 1,000. So divide that by 1,000, 35.6 million per mill. We can only tax 96% of that, so multiply that by 96%, you're at maybe 33.5, 34. So that half mil brings in $16 million in this year's budget, and it was about $15 million last year.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why at a half mil, 15 million, your 1.5 capital brings in 3 times that, or about 48 million. So it's 16.2 or 3 million.
Right.
We could go higher, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I want to just reiterate something we discussed in the past that I brought up, and just that due to the continued decline in enrollment and the projection of how that could impact us, I do think it would be beneficial to do like a Doge-like forensic audit and really drill down and try to basically eliminate that lost revenue we have year over year that we can find and eliminate, so that it sets us up for success later and less losses over time.
Yep, I can tell you the self-doging that we have done has been consistent all year. We have gone through discretionary budgets 2 years in a row, 1.2 million last year, 1.6 million this year. We've cut $7 million from district over 6 years.
Yeah.
Another, so 2.8 million total this year. I can tell you that discretionary budgets are extremely, extremely efficient. I have gone through them line by line personally in my office, pulling them up. If it's a chair, bring the chair to my office so I can look at it. Literally, travel has been reduced. So those things, we've had to do that to align, and we've done that also through the staff allocation model. So those efficiencies that we've done and through the superintendent's reorg that we brought forward is a very, very strong testament. If you will look at some other districts, you can look at their FEFP calculations. They're online. There are some other districts exactly like us with a much bigger budget who owe the state $800,000 in their FEFP. They went negative on their FEFP. Our fund balance is maintained at $31 million. It dropped to $181,000 across a $418 million budget. You will see that the capital is beefed up for safety and security. There's some money in the project. So I do want to really thank my staff. You want to meet someone who is super, super frugal. She drives a Kia, and it's not broken down, as he said. It is in the parking lot 24/7. It's here on Sundays, and when she gets an email with a request, she wants to know why, how can we do it differently, how can we fund it differently. I thought I was frugal, but this budget is in good shape because of those cuts those efficiencies, those reductions, and those changes that we have made as an organization to ensure that we can fund the things that you say are important as we move forward.
Ms. Rosario?
So thank you for all of this information. What is the plan from this moment forward until we finalize the budget and bring the board into budget workshops or any other plans moving forward? Or are we just going to receive a book a week before we vote for the final budget and that's it?
So we have another board workshop that we're going to be doing on August 25th on the budget. We will be closing out this budget and creating that final budget book, if you will, for the September 9th. There's a workshop on September 9th as well. The budget that you have before you and the budget that you bring forward is, I don't want to say scripted, but almost scripted in its calculations and formulas and its placement. So for example, in that budget, when you look at maybe the $170 million coming in from the FEFP, well, $125 million of that's salary and benefits, and we did the superintendent's reorg, so that's lined up. Take off the fund balance, $30 million. Take off charter schools, $24 million. Take off. So as you get down, the budget is funded on the initiatives that you have set forward, whether it's the safety and security projects, whether it is communication, those things are built into the budget. So we will be updating the board and having a workshop on August 25th that will have all of that information and the final budget in it.
So August 25th, that's what, a week before, 2 weeks before September? I gotta look at the calendar. So you're gonna give us the final budget book 2 weeks before we vote?
And over the summer, what we have traditionally done, and several board members have already done that, is most board members will come in, we will spend a couple hours, we'll go through that, and then any questions like last year that were asked at that were answered at that workshop over the summer. So any specific, my last budget book I should have brought with me, I think it has 200 tabs of board member questions. All of those were either answered and then we reviewed those at that workshop. So anything that happens between now and then and that we can answer, that we can go over, we'll make sure is answered on August 25th.
So my concern is we haven't identified what our priorities are. Our board priorities moving forward for this next coming year and for the next 5 years have not been approved.
So, as I said, the budget that you're adopting, once you adopt it, it is modified on a daily basis. Every month you get budget amendments. So as the strategic plan is developed, as any priority, for example, Apogee came about, mobile app, communication, two-way communication, those items get adjusted in the budget, and that's after. So this is the technical budget adoption process. How the expenditures happen throughout the year, that's driven by this board and the superintendent, and we adjust the budget accordingly as those priorities come up.
But that, you said it again, you said the budget gets, you said that based on, the budget is created and then the priorities are set. It's supposed to be the other way around. Our budget is based on the priorities. Our priorities need to be set first, and that is what is the driving force of the budget. Now, I understand all the calculations, I understand the money, but any strategic plan, everyone knows that a strategic plan drives the budget, not the other way around. And it seems like we seem to be reversing that course. A few years ago, we were on the right track with that. Now it seems like we're reversing. We're doing everything opposite of aligning our budget to our strategic plan and not aligning it and then waiting. So as far as I'm concerned, our strategic plan should have been approved months ago. I don't know what we're waiting on because we knew that this was coming up. We should have approved it. to allow you and your team time to incorporate our priorities within the decisions that are made in terms of, you know, what goes where and how and why, what buckets, if you will. And now it's like we're getting, I keep saying the same, it feels like it's less and less. Technically, we can come to you with our questions one-on-one, but you can't make changes to the budget based on our individual questions. Any changes have to be made through the board corporate. So we can ask you questions, but that's not going to make a big difference. What makes a big difference is when we have board corporate workshops that are specific to the budget and that are aligned to our strategic plan. And I don't see any of that here.
Madam Chair? I never have, and am not asking the board how to create strategy to move the system forward. I believe that is my job. The budget itself, I can't thank Mr. Green and team for the work that they have done. And I mean, I think in comparison to the other 66 districts, I don't think there's been more conversations. And I assure you, board, from the instructional coach to the classroom teacher, to the principal, to the district level, directors, to assistant superintendents, this team is locked and loaded on strategy. We know exactly what's important. We know exactly how to put the needs of children in front of the desires of adults. And that's the reason you're number 5 of 67 in the state. And that's the reason you'll be number 1 of 67 with all A schools at the end of this particular year. So I will act in response to the board proper if there's a different direction in which to go. But my recommendation is, and just to be clarity, I have a level of clarity. We, as staff, will bring a recommendation and present it to the board. My recommendation will come to the board, and there'll be shifts and changes when you all are sitting as a board. So that is correct. But it doesn't shift or change what my recommendation will be. But if the board has the desire to shift or modify a structure, that would be at the will of the board. So we'll work at the will of the board.
Dr. Moore, I want to make a comment about it.
Hold on, let me finish
No,
my-
I'm going to make a comment right now, and the comment's going to be, a
You're
few years ago,
interrupting
we
me?
were 38th, and now we're 5th. Obviously, the superintendent knows how to handle the budgeting process well. Super. When I first got on this board, we were in the negative. We had serious budgeting problems. Our standard index, I believe, was poor, or I don't remember what the term was, but it was not where we are today. So you're obviously doing something right, and kudos to you for this process.
Again, as I was saying, one thing has nothing to do with the other. So your response to my concerns, you didn't answer my concerns. So my concerns have nothing to do with how great we have improved in our budget and in our finances as a whole. That's not the furthest thing from what I said. And neither did I say anything about individual board members telling you strategy. Nothing that I said had anything to do with strategy. What I said was that there is a concern that we are not brought into the process and that our strategic plan is not adopted. It is not official. It is not adopted before the budget will be created. As far as I know, we still right now do not have a budget moving forward do not have a strategic plan for the district moving forward. We have parts of it, but it has not been adopted, nor have we had any further discussions on the strategic plan moving forward. So as we know, and as we have all agreed, the strategic plan drives the budget, not the other way around.
Ms. Barrymore?
Dr. Jones?
I'm just trying to look back at all of my notes. I believe we started the process in March, looking at everything and bringing it together. then we had our individual meetings, and we had our workshops and discussions. You know, when you look at our strategic plan, you can look back and see, and I think I know all of them, as far as our pillars and our principles. And the two that stick out to me are always student achievement and fiscal responsibility. And when we look at those two, along with what we do as far as collaboration and planning, recruitment, making sure our students have the best teachers, I don't think we've ever veered from those principles since I've been on the board in the last 3 or 4 years. And when we look at what we're dealing with in the budget, you know, I've been sweating that federal for a while now, thinking, what if we lose that 1.6 million? Of course, I'm thinking that has to go through a process, not just you're going to wipe it out. But what can we do? Because it was so important for our title schools. And as we've all said, you know, whenever we have a question or a call, and most of mine are Sundays, and I'm sorry, Mr. Green, when I start thinking of something, but it's answered very well. And when you look at our budget in general, the main areas, the operating budget, the capital budget, the enterprise, you know, all of those combined with our food service and everything else that we're looking at, it comes down when you look at your operating budget after you pay the salaries where we don't have a lot of money to spare. And Dr. Posca brought up a good thing, but I think we've done a pretty good job of when you look at the alignment that Dr. Moore created with staff and so forth, and you look at the number of people we still need to start the school year, we're doing pretty well on that. We have been you know, I guess you could say, looking at this, self-assessing, because we know that budget's based on attendance, and that's how we get our money. You know, that's a kind of low way of saying that, but that's how we get our money. And when you look at what our principals deal with in discretionary, so much per student, you know, high school, middle, and elementary, and they have really cut back on the extra money they have because most of it goes to salaries. So whether a strategic plan has been formally approved, we've been talking about those pillars. We have had workshops within our community to take a look at these things. So I don't think there's any issue there as far as we are going, but I do think that our budget is aligning with where we want to go. Not only is it aligning it, we're proving it, that the focus is on the student achievement. So I don't feel like I've been left out of anything as far as strategic plan, because that really hasn't changed. You look at our pillars even from 3 or 4 years ago. We shifted a little bit since Dr. Moore's been here, but the focus has been the student achievement, the fiscal responsibility, and then of course the community partnerships and so forth, which make us who we are. So, you know, I'm okay with how it's going and how it's continuing going. I'm always going to be worried about what cuts are we going to have to make. You know, now we're not on a level playing field. Now we have to prove to our community we are the #1 choice, and dang it, we're doing it. And I hope that we continue to do it. So I'm okay with the process. I'm okay.
Mr. Dyer?
Yeah, I feel that we've had certainly adequate input into strategic plan. I remember one where we made innovation as one of the pillars. So I feel satisfied that we've had a lot of input into strategic plan, whether it was formally adopted or not. I don't think that that's even really an issue. You know, I call it stratacute, and that is really executing the strategies that you have. And I think that you guys have stratacuted better than most people that I have seen. When I look at the academic achievements, when I look at, you know, we're a high-performing school district, not only because of academic achievement, but also because of fiscal responsibility. There's not very many districts in the state. What is there, a handful? Maybe there's 10 in the state that are high-performing school districts, which are both I thought it was less than that, but I think there's both A and fiscally responsible. So we're one of a few. I look at it the different way. You know, I've spent a lot of time trying to analyze the budget and get into the budget and try to understand where, you know, I call it separating the nice from the necessary. I've said, much to my dismay, because I felt that we needed about $12 million to go towards increase teacher salaries, administration salaries. I think that our teachers are underpaid. I think that when we get a high-performing school district like we have, that we need to make sure that we pay everybody in the district, certainly in the leadership of the district appropriately. So, you know, that has been one of the things that I wanted to come in and dig. And I did some deep dives in the budget. I attended 4 days worth of seminars, or 5 days with FASB to try to dig into the budget and get some insights. And I came away, you know, when you talk about Doge, and I think that what you're really saying, you know, whether it's a forensic audit means one thing to me, but what you're saying is let's separate the nice from the necessary. If there's anything that we're doing that we shouldn't do, let's not do it. And let's put it on where our priorities are, and whether it's innovation or something else. Is there something, if you really went through and did a deep dive, could you come up with $1 million or $2 million? Maybe. I think the state has done a really good job of that, and that's why I've been on ever since these FASB seminars and saw really what was going on and really got a deep understanding of it, that the state has dojied for us. Mm-hmm. I mean, they keep taking money away. I mean, you look even at capital funds. We didn't get until 2023 the same amount of capital in dollars that we had in 2008 when they temporarily lowered the millage rate. To me, if I look at innovation, I would say, what can we do to get the community to believe in what we're doing? I mean, they've seen it for 3 years, and actually go for additional funding through additional millage. I would do that. I would come out and look at everything in the strategic plan and everything that you want to do for innovation and reinventing a school district to continue in your quest to #1 and provide additional funding. I haven't seen the funding that is, first, it is not, it is so siloed in state funding. You have to spend it here, or you have to spend it there. We don't have the flexibility to even take it from somewhere where we may want to even cut. Certainly if it's allocated and specifically for those categories. But I think that we are underfunded in innovation, and so far, and underfunded in teacher salaries and administrative salaries in the district. And I haven't seen the funds available to support that from my, probably not as in-depth as certainly you guys have gone, but I mean, I've tried to find it and tried to challenge you to show me where it is. And so far, you've been either very good at hiding it or it's not there. So I guess that's where I am. Again, I feel very comfortable where we are. I salute you guys for your success. I think that you've got the main thing. The main thing, as you say, that is on academic achievement and performance. It's be about the kids versus the adults, and I am certainly feel comfortable about where we are in the process, for me.
Anyone else? Okay. I actually have a couple, if that's okay. So can we go back to the slide that says 2025, 2026 budget development process timeline? I think that's great that you put that there because you were kind of scolded for non-transparency in the past, and I think this is a great proof that we've been very transparent, and we've been putting out there all the time. Board members have the opportunity to meet with you anytime. You know, I wait until we get cemented numbers before I want to sit in there and look at things because, you know, right now, why are we looking at these numbers other than to guess? So, you know, I'll be knocking on your door soon for that. If you go to the tentative budget one, the next one, that one, the millage compared to like Martin County, you know, is interesting. You know, we've been comparing ourselves academically to Martin County, but if you look, you know, not only do they have a millage, it's about the same, right?
A little bit more than our 16 is, with their TED a little higher, but similar.
But they also have a sales tax, correct?
Half 0.5, yeah.
This year's budget is estimated to bring in an additional 25.
Right, and we don't do that here. Perhaps that's a way we could do some innovation and incentives, but, you know, that's an ugly word, sales tax, and that's going to be down the line at some point, probably a discussion about that if we ever choose to do something like that. I'm not suggesting we do it. I'm just saying that they do it, and yet look at the outcomes that we're getting, and we're getting less funding. The Doge Lake audit is interesting. I just don't know what it would cost. So I don't want to spend money if we're looking at, really doing a deep dive ourselves. The other thing is, on the next slide, can you go to the next one? There. On the enterprise, that 23% budget per change, could you go over that a little bit more? Because that's what I will come into your office and ask specifically about, because that's the biggest number I see an increase. And are those federal funds?
So the enterprise funds are extended days. So those are families, and we raised the rates $5.
So that's including the money that the parents are,
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Yeah, if you recall that.
Right.
fund
$5.
Was needing to be balanced, so we raised it. And just to remind you, this is the tentative budget, so what will happen, there's something called pension liabilities and other post-employment benefits. Those will not hit us, we won't even hit those till late August, early September. And those sometimes have been upwards of $600,000 negative to the fund. So that fund balance will not be that
Bruce,
number.
You need your microphone.
That fund balance will not be that number at the final budget because we will adjust it for the post-employment benefits and other liabilities. It
but
could
that
increase.
changes, a lot of it is because parents are paying into that.
Some of that is parents paying in the extra $5, and then some of it is, I know we went through and looked at the staffing model and how that was on some of the different area supervisors and whatnot. So that's some efficiencies through that. That's a slight increase, but that fund balance will reduce once we get our other liabilities. Could possibly reduce dramatically. Sometimes it's level. It just depends on what those liabilities are.
Okay. And then on the next page where it says federal funds update, that one, it says over 1.6 million we got that, but I think what people don't realize is, a lot of that are employee salaries that we're paying for supports for kids with disabilities that have that requirement and deserve that support. And if we didn't get that funding, we would be out of compliance, right, with that support. And so that was critical that we got that funding. So I'm glad to see that that finally came through. All right, any other items, board members, for?
Just one question.
Yes, Mr. Green.
With the 21st Century Fund, so we have no grants with 21st Century now. I'm just thinking about innovation and so forth. When I was at the high school, we had a large 21st Century grant that helped with after-school programs. So I didn't know if that application was available, if we're ever going to look at that, because it was pretty good money for our after-school programs. So think about it. Have you ever done one of those, Dr. Moore, in May? They were significant. And at that time, it was for after-school programs specifically at Sebastian River High School for migrants, which we have many more at that time. But when we think of where we can get more money, it's an idea.
All right, following items will be presented by Dr. Shafty, then Ms. Christofoli, then Ms. Becerra, and then back to Mr. Green.
Through the chair, the next item is item C, review of school media center book orders for school year 25-26. In accordance with Board Policy 2520, we bring forth these orders on behalf of all of our schools. Today, bringing forth 6 orders. Included in each backup documentation is a similar format with the book, the ISBN, the author, the total price, as well as the committee of parents that approved the books. I will say for each of these 6 schools, Pelican Island unanimously approved on May 13th, Treasure Coast February 19th, Osceola May 13th, Glendale April 14th, Beachland May 16th, and Rosewood April 21st. Upon arrival, each of these books will be reviewed in their entirety before being placed on the shelf, and each of these orders have been briefed with you individually in board briefings. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone? Okay.
The next item is the review of our Aptigee subscription. We have been leading very much with our brand, My SDIRC, but behind that brand is Aptigee, which will take place, the place of our current website, our current application, school messenger, and other communication avenues between school, district, and home. This amount is actually a cost savings. When you look at the total amount on this invoice, just over $80,000. Two of the platforms we pay for, School Messenger is $48,000, Remind is $38,000, and we're already at a cost savings going through a streamlined approach with Aptigee. As well, this item was briefed with you individually, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay.
Good morning, through the chair. This is a review of the mental health assistance allocation plan with the understanding that the purpose is to establish or expand school-based mental health care, train educators or other school staff in detecting and responding to mental health issues, or connecting children or youth and families with appropriate behavioral health services. If we do service the charter schools, so if they choose to put their own plan in, it is reviewed by us. Ms. Ainge is up just for any other questions. And the plan is also focused on a very multi-tiered systems of support. And so if you look, it also includes all of our, just get to the next page, all of our interagency agreements or community contracts that we have, Legacy, New Horizons, Tykes and Teens, et cetera. And then when you look at the budget, we received just shy of $1,100,000, which is about $21,000 less than last year with a rollover. So we are supporting 6 school counselors. We have 33 total. That is 7 at River Beach High School, just information, 5 at Sebastian River High School, 2 at each middle school, 1 at each elementary. 1 is shared between 2 of the smaller elementary schools. We are supporting new this year 1 school social worker who is a mental health certified staff. We're very excited about that, and she'll be focusing mainly on the high schools with a very small focus on attendance. We have 3, the next line is 3 mental health service providers. Those are our mental wellness specialists. So we have 3 of those. They are in 2-week rotations at each school. Mental health administrator, which is Ms. Sarah Ainge, and support. And then we have mileage and professional development or Navigate 360 contracts, which we approved at a previous board meeting. And then you can see at the bottom the actual amounts per charter school since they opted to do their own plan.
Mr. Dyer.
Yeah, I had a question, and that was when I looked at the ratios in there, and you had, I think for mental health, you had 1 to 1,800 students, and then for counselors, it was 1 to 426. And my question is how, I mean, I don't know what that means. Is that good or bad? Are we where we should be, or do we need more staff? Do we need less staff?
So we looked through the chair.
Sarah here.
Through the chair, we looked at surrounding districts. We are, with the school counselors, at an average of just over 400. Surrounding districts are high 300s, low 400s. So
Okay.
Brevard, St. Lucie, Martin County, which we, of course, always look at. I'm sure other larger districts or smaller districts may have a different average. I'm sure Dr. Moore could tell us from a Miami lens, but we are pretty much in line with the surrounding districts.
And what about the 1 to 1,800, and what was that in the social work? Yeah?
So do you want to speak to that?
That's through our mental health specialist and the school social worker, or well, I think it's just the mental health specialist. Yes. It's those 3 individuals. Really, they're serving students on a tier 3 level, so that's not the majority of our students. So if we just do the math of like our total enrollment, back at the end of June was 14,175, and then divided by the 3 people. Or well, that's how we.
So it's around 500 really for people that are eligible for that type of support. Okay.
Yes, yeah. we're not, that's definitely serving not the largest portion of our students. They just ask based on our enrollment, what is our ratio,
And that's
not
similar,
students served.
is that similar to other counties? Or do we feel like we're low or high, or?
We all have our discretion, to fund our plan as our district needs, to meet the needs of the district. So we are using our funds for school counselors because those are our people on the front lines. And our people that are serving all students at a tier 1 level and then at tier 2. And then our mental wellness specialists and school social workers serve at the tier 3 level.
And through the chair, in prior years, we did not have school counselors at the elementary level.
Okay.
So 5 years ago when Dr. Moore got here, almost 6 now, we put that in place. I'm just the truth. We put that in place so we would have that closest to students, that support.
Yeah, I guess sometimes when I see the ratios and things like that, it would be helpful if they were put in context about, because I mean, 1,800 sounds like a big number. I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad, but just context sometimes would help me understand some of the numbers I see.
Dr. Jones?
Thank you. Yeah, we're the norm for counselors. Doesn't mean it's right, but we're the norm. And speaking as a principal at middle and high school, it's so important because our counselors are the gateway to where we need to go next. And I know I've shared this with Dr. Moore and so as Superintendent's Advisory Council. You'll hear from kids. We appreciate the mental health help because the need is out there. Just a question in general. How do you feel in general about our community contracts and interagency agreements? Are they working, or can we get more out of them? More people?
I'm super thankful. We have some wonderful community partners that we work with, and they are like, what can we do? How can we be more involved? They want to be on our campuses and they want to be serving our students. I am very thankful to have really good contacts with each of the program coordinators in our county through the different agencies, and just if we have a really high student need, I can make a call and they will get the student in as soon as they can. Our wait lists thankfully are not very long in our community right now for mental health support, so that is a huge, we could not do it without our community partnerships.
So, Ms. Ainge, if you needed more people on campus or even 1 or 2 days a week, they would work with us on that?
Yes, I'm in plans, and some of them, unfortunately, their funding is getting hit very hard as well. And so they are writing grants and doing things through the community to try to get more people on our campus.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'd just like to say, you mentioned that that person is also going to focus a little bit on attendance. So you're talking about chronic absent kids?
Yes.
And, when you drill down, you might find out homeless or what other needs that they have, and then work with services to help. So that person's going to be kind of our point of contact for that?
Yes, 100% for our high schools.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Through the chair. I have 3 items for your review today. The first 2 go together. They are both with Treasure Coast Technical College. The first one is the fee schedule. The fee schedule is established at the legislature level, and I've paired that with the dual enrollment articulation agreement also with Treasure Coast Technical College, and that does meet established state statute as well. Any questions regarding those 2 items? Okay.
Wait.
And my next item is our student progression plan. This was an interesting year to do the progression plan because we had very few changes through the curriculum and instruction lens. However, any changes that did really come online were very late in the game. So I will present this to you for your review, but I would also like to draw your attention. There are 3 what we call Scribner's errors, and I'd like permission to make those changes for tonight's board meeting. The first one is it's under the grade averaging, and it goes through the progression of an A equals a 4. On mine, I'm on the page 45. Okay. It's at the bottom of 45. The A equals a 4 in a 4.0 scale, B equals a 3, C equals a 2. We also have a very easy grading scale according to this, where a D also equals a 2. That should be a 1. So I'm always trying to be on behalf of kids, but we do have to make that a 1. The next one is under the passing concordance scores, we have the CLT score as a 39, and
Page? What page?
that's on, oh, I'm sorry, 48. That should be CLT 10 with the score of 39. Okay,
Not yet, hold on.
okay.
What was it listed? Oh, 14.
10.
The CLT 10 is a new test. We'll be administering this year.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And then the very next page, page 49, under the performance-based exit option, this is an option we chose to not remove in the event that somewhere down the line we will use this, but we have not used this in many years. You'll see in that third line, overage, as in like surplus, that should be over age. So there should be a space between those. Yes. So with all the spell checks in the world, catching overage was not going to be possible. I just appreciate the extra eyes on this document. And with your permission, I'll make those changes for tonight.
Any questions, board members? Ms. Rosario?
Can we go back to the CLT 10?
Yes,
Did you say that was page 48?
yes.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're adding CLT 10 and the concordance score, do you have the concordance score?
39 for the CLT 10.
I see 37 for the CLT 10 and 16 for the quantitative reasoning. I can send this to you. I just pulled up the rule,
Okay.
6A100315
Okay.
demonstration.
I verified with our assessment and accountability department, but I will go back to that.
Yeah, this is the actual rule itself.
Okay. They've
The-
been changing these as rapidly as of a week ago.
Yeah.
So if it pleases the board, I will find out what it is today and add that.
Okay.
Okay, this was as of rule effective 7/8/2025, file date 6/18, and this was the latest one. I'd be happy to send it to you.
Thank you.
And then, but the CLT is 38. The CLT is 38, quantitative reasoning 16. The CLT 10 is 37, just 1 point less, and the quantitative reasoning 16. So same math, 1 point less for the reading.
Okay.
But I'll send this to you, and will we be able to add the actual scores tonight? Did you?
I would prefer that we do, as
Yeah.
long as it pleases the board.
Thank you.
Because we can just say adopted as amended. So you're going to pull that from consent to action then? Okay, you're going to amend it, and we'll just call it as amended then. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Next item through the chair is the disposal of surplus property. This time it's a pretty small list, about 20 items. There are 2 vehicles, an F-350 that's 21 years old. You purchased a new one recently. That pulls our mini excavator and stuff that repairs the ball fields and whatnot, and a Chevy Equinox that was 20 years old, some welding equipment that's 11 years old from Vero Beach High School, and some old projectors. Along with that is the annual inventory results. So once a year, we have to go through by statute and look at what's missing. Out of all of the items, there are only 3 LCD projectors that are 8 years old and useless, but when they were transferred from one school to another, the transfer form was not completed properly. The incident report is attached to your board agenda item. So out of all of the items that we have inventoried, there are only 3 that have an issue. No police reports or stolen equipment.
Okay, board members, anyone? I have one comment. Somebody showed me a picture of one of our maintenance vehicles that looked horrible. Do we have any excess paint around or anything?
They're probably maintained about as good as they can be, but on the inside, so I will check into that. Was that over at physical plant?
It was on the road, so somebody sent me a picture.
I will
Or
check
they
on
showed
that.
me a picture, they didn't send it to me. They just showed it to me on their phone, and I went, oh.
The next item, J, is an agreement with Cherry Beckert for external auditing services where you're required to have a annual financial audit. Every 3 years, the Auditor General conducts that. They did that 2 years ago. This past year, we used Cherry Beckert. We put that out again, and so this is a renewal for Cherry Beckert to do that work again throughout this year, and then next year, we will be off the hook for that cost as the Auditor General will be coming in and doing it again. Item K is a renewal of stop loss, and we've briefed on this several times. So we are self-insured in our health insurance fund. When you get a very large claim, cancer, heart attack, open heart surgery, it can be upward of $1 million per claim. This is an insurance that stops the loss at $250,000 per individual claim and $250,000 total. That premium was about $850,000 last year. There's about an 18.5% increase. It's roughly $1 million paid out of the health insurance fund. We put it out to bid to 9 different vendors. 6 of them just refused. We've had over 23 high claims. So QBE was, again, the most responsive to that. Item L is the award of your CMAR continuing services to multiple contractors. That's Proctor, Remnant, Jacqueline & Sons, Bill Bryant, and Lego Construction. These are for projects not to exceed $7.5 million. They will be board approved in your capital plan anyway. Construction management at risk means they give us a guaranteed max price. If they go over it, that's on them. If they go under it, they give us the money back. That's a way of bidding versus ones where they adjust the price along the way. So these is an RFQ, just a request for qualifications. As the project come on, we rotate through them and use them as needed.
That last one, Lego Construction?
It is actually Lego Construction. That's branding at its best, right? Item M is a review of the award of an ITB for painting services. This is in the physical plant department, Mr. Michaels, in maintaining our buildings. Quick Painting was the primary with 512 Painting, McDines of Brevard, and Tubito Painting all as secondary. So that is to award them. The estimated annual impact is $250,000, and that's for maintenance painting. And item N is a review of the 3-year contract with Power School. We have had Power School since 2004, I think, when it was Performance Matters. That's your unified platform. That's the platform we create our assessments, we develop them, we deliver them, we score them. All of that data that you see analyzed and that teachers have access to and our leadership teams all come through that Power School agreement. And that is a renewal of a 3-year contract with them again. And I believe you are done with me today, hopefully.
Madam Chair, that
We're not done yet with you today.
that finalizes all the items for the superintendent, so there is discussion items for the board to have.
Okay, so the first discussion item is school board members' travel. That's something that we voted on every year, and in the past, the items that are on there, listed on there, are the ones I believe that we voted on in the past. So I've been asked to bring this to a workshop to discuss. Anyone have a discussion about this?
The only thing that I have, this is new. This is fairly new. I mean, we've only been voting on this, maybe this is our 2nd year. This isn't something that we traditionally voted on. However, the one thing that concerns me and what was originally brought up is because in the conversation when we first had this to vote on this issue, was the fact that the list was not to be specific to these items. Basically, these were just some of the ones that we could think of, but they weren't to be limited to the ones on this list. So in other words, if something comes up tomorrow, and a board member receives an email that says, hey, you know, this is coming up, but it just isn't on our list, we should have a discussion about those organizations that are having training that are just not on this list, because it would basically tie us up to only those on this list, and that I think is pretty unfair, because you might find a training significantly important that is not here. And again, these listed items were initially just based on a suggested list rather than an only list, essentially. So that's really my only concern. I think it's fine. I don't have any issues with the list itself. I just think that we shouldn't be hogged down to just the ones that are on here. I think we should just have an asterisk that just says not limited to. So I guess that's my
Let me
concern.
clarify something. Was it up to over 500, right? That we vote on it as a board, correct? Okay. Yes, thank you. Because I believe we had to follow statute.
Say that again, I don't understand.
She's going to explain.
Okay. Yeah,
Maybe? I thought I had it on.
I think it's
Yeah,
on.
I think it's on, okay. So section 1001.39 is titled District School Board Members' Travel Expenses. And subsection 1 specifically requires that any travel outside the district that exceeds $500 requires a prior approval by the district school board to confirm that such travel is for official business of the school district and complies with the rules of the State Board of Education. So in addition to that, I think we discussed this at our training 2 weeks ago, whenever we hear about our ethics training. So you're approving the fact that those that are listed, you're approving the confirmation that such travel is for official business of the school district and complies with the state board rules. To answer your question, Member Rosario, if there are additional ones, then I think you need to bring forth those additional ones that are going to be $500. If that travel would exceed that, which I would think they would almost all do that.
Yeah.
And then additionally, the statute requires if you're going outside the state, then we have to itemize everything. And I don't know how often you all travel outside of the state, but that requires an itemization. So if there are additional ones that you would like to go to that come up, I think we have to bring another agenda item to just confirm that that travel that would be associated for that particular conference would be for official business of the school district. Does that help?
So can we add just on the bottom of this, the statute and like a little blurb in there that there's an understanding, I mean, even long beyond the board that's here, just so that there's clarity as to what this list is meant for. It's only titled 25, 26 school board members travel, but it doesn't specify training, it doesn't specify the statute, it doesn't specify the minimum, or in this case, these are approved above the $500. Can we just add like something in there just to?
You mean on the agenda item?
Huh? I'm sorry?
Is it, I believe it's on the.
On the
agenda.
actual form,
Yep.
potentially.
Okay, good. I thought we did. Okay. So on your thing, it says, wait,
On what thing?
on the agenda item, it specifically refers to policy 0147.1, which I believe then references the statute. But I see what you're asking is you're asking
Yeah.
if we can add the statute to there. I
To
don't
the
know if we can
form
do that
itself, to
for
the list on the
tonight.
bottom of the list. After all of the acronyms that are there on our list, there are acronyms, or above.
Or above.
And I think the top where it says 25, 26 school board members travel, I think it should say training. Because travel could be from here to another school.
Right.
You
It's
know.
travel and expenses, and it's for outside the district.
Is that what the statute
Again,
says?
Again,
Any
great.
travel outside the district that exceeds $500, so it doesn't incorporate your travel inside the
But
district.
that's my point, is that this form here, the way that it's very general. It's very generic. It's not specific to outside of the district. So that's all, just kind of tweak the title and maybe add a blurb on the bottom.
The locations are outside the district, so to me, it's fine. One thing I think it would be nice, we're kind of in a vote, we're going to approve that if, let's get this clarified, that if a board member wants to attend something that's on this list, they can
Right.
just do it. They don't have to go back to the board and ask for it to be approved.
That's correct.
Okay, I
If
just want
it's-
to make sure.
So
There
if
is
there's-
something missing from the list, though, that I noticed was the FSBA finance training, I think it is? Because I think you attended that this past
Yeah,
year.
I had to get permission somehow. I filled out a form.
Yeah.
Somebody approved it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so that one needs to be added there. Can you add that?
We can amend it.
Can you just say FSBA trainings in general? Does it have to be
There you go.
specific?
No,
Just say FSBA/FADS
I think that makes sense.
conferences.
Okay, could you
Dr.
repeat?
Jones?
Would you repeat that? I'm confused on what was just said.
I think we wanted to make sure that the agenda item as written, and hang on, I'm going to have to pull it up real quick. The agenda item as written just has event, website, dates, and location, which are all, well, there is an FSBA that's in Orlando, so that's still outside the county. I think we're adding, well, you have the summer conferences there. I think maybe the ask is to add like FSBA/FADS in general
Finance,
conferences.
well, the question was finance conference was not on here. Because sometimes they have a finance in, I think, March or April or something like that.
It's every
Maybe
two-
February.
It's every 2 years, and there's 2 sessions.
Yeah, but if we just,
Engagement.
if we just make it simple, you know, and just say FSBA/FADS conferences,
Along with all these other ones?
no.
Just
Just
FSBA? That's
FSBA
okay.
general, anything FSBA and FADS.
She's just referring to the FSBA.
There's a lot of FSBA
Yeah.
meetings that go on.
Yeah, that's
I'm
why,
not so sure how many, if all of them are beneficial, but, you know, that's another topic. But anyway,
Yes,
but we're members of them, so it's like, I mean,
right, and
if
that's a
there's
good point.
If there
We are
is
members.
one that you're interested in, I think under the banner of FSBA/FADS.
all you have to do is just bring it up to the board and get board approval from now on.
Well, that's
I
what we're
guess.
doing.
Well, that's what we're
tonight.
doing now.
Right.
We're doing that tonight.
Okay.
Dr. Posca?
I'm happy to vote for this item with the amended changes you guys are suggesting. But my only contribution is, I think we'd be better off ending the funding of our travel and going through if you think about on an annual basis, all the school board members from around the state going to Clearwater, Orlando, to a lavish hotel, it constitutes a couple $1 million probably a year of taxpayer dollars to fund.
Your mic, sorry.
Closer.
I was suggesting that I would support this item with the changes you guys are making, but I would suggest that we consider ending the funding to pay for the travel. And if you think about all the members, school board members alone from across the state going to lavish hotels in Clearwater and Orlando for these various conferences, it constitutes probably a couple $1 million in waste annually. And it doesn't mean that what they're going to is a waste. I'm sure it's very valuable to a lot of people. But I don't think the taxpayers should be the ones footing the bill for this on an annual basis. I think it's really added up over time. I don't think this is really what it was intended to be. And I don't think any of these meetings could not be done over a video call. So we really don't need hotel expenses, dinner expenses, travel expenses. I don't think it's appropriate or proper.
Anybody else?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Mr. Green, I'm sorry I didn't look this up. What is our board travel budget? I think I know, but total, what does the board travel get for budget? 25. If somebody could look that up. Total for 5 of us?
That includes your travel as well. Does that include Dr. Moore's included in this? Because I see FADS in there, that's why I was asking. Okay.
Well, I agree that we should have FSBA and FADS down there, and I agree somewhat with Dr. Posca. And I'm very, very picky about my travel. I will go the once a year, and I love learning, please don't get me wrong. But one of the reasons I wanted this brought up, because we did have a board member go to another one, and what was shared, I did not think was really going to be beneficial to us as board members. I think the FSBA and FADS, as far as, their mission is looking at student achievement and how boards can help their superintendent achieve that. And they're public school advocates, and I think that's one thing that we have to continue to do that. I mean, we're all here because we're public school advocates, so I'm not sure exactly how this is going to be worded, but again, I'm very particular about going, if we do go, because it does cost money. You can't go to a conference, I'm thinking of the winter one I've gone to, 2 or 3 nights, and it's $1,000. So I think we have to be careful on that. Do we all need to go? Again, looking at that in general, but whatever, it is taxpayer money, and we need to make sure that what we're doing is going to come back and help us as far as student achievement, innovation, funding, and what we can do there. But these other ones, I don't know. I looked at some of them as far as their values and their mission statements and so forth. And whether we like all the breakout sessions, and I've done those at the state before, hard to get all the breakout sessions that everybody likes. So, but some of it can be done over Zoom, so I think we need to analyze that. But the one thing I do understand is I don't want to say, oh, we never need to go, because professional development is key, in our learning. So I'm not sure exactly how it's going to look like tonight, but Mr. Rosario and Mr. Dyer were right as far as just FSBA conferences. And there are a lot out there, but I've just usually gone to the winter one. But those are the ones I think we're okay on, but maybe we can take a look at it, see what we're spending.
I don't really understand some of these other ones on here personally, through the chair. I mean, what's the conservative board? Does that mean we should put a liberal board on here? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's getting a little strange, some of these things that are on there, and I'm not sure why we have these other, I mean, I just don't understand totally what they are.
Okay.
But I want to make sure that whatever we do, it should be non-political.
Right.
It should be for the betterment of the school district.
Right.
And it certainly shouldn't be partisan. Now, I don't know, the conservative board, I'm conservative, it sounds great to me, but what if somebody's not? Is that anything the school board should be getting into, is picking a side? It just doesn't seem particularly correct to me to get political into a nonpartisan school board.
Dr. Posca?
Yeah, so I just want to follow up. I'm not trying to point the finger at anybody here. I think you guys are probably all fairly frugal, and I would not be surprised if half of your expenses are not, you're not asking for reimbursement, I'm sure. But I think it would be interesting if we were the first county and district to self-defund our own travel. I mean, to set an example and
Interesting.
let the taxpayers know we do care about them and their money, and we're trying to spend it well.
You make a good point, and I agree with you, not to waste the money, for sure. But I also have to think about if there's somebody that gets elected that can't afford that, and how fair would that be?
Yeah.
Thinking of the greater good. I get a lot out of going to the conferences because of the networking and the ability to pick up the phone and call somebody in Tallahassee or call somebody in another district and say, hey, we got this issue. I mean, Duval helped me a lot this year with some issues and really helped us with getting some things pushed forward that helped our district with CTE funds and things like that. And that took a couple of calls and a lot of negotiating between different districts. So I find the value in it. What I'd like to propose is perhaps pulling this back and saying we're members of FSBA. We approve FSBA conferences, period. And then if a board member wants to go to something else, then they need to propose it and bring it to the board for that approval.
I'm good with that.
And I'd be fine with that, and then let's look at it and say, did we pare it back, or did we keep spending money that we shouldn't be spending? But that's my suggestion. Anyone else?
I would be in support of that, but I'd also be in support of tabling this and coming back at the next workshop and trying to figure out what these things are and to listen to what Dr. Posca has said and is to try to figure out if we really, what of these we really need, what's nice and what's necessary. I mean, let's do the necessary ones, but the nice ones, maybe again, we don't all have to do, or maybe we appoint a representative to go to some of these things. Maybe there's a way that we could be somewhere in the middle and make sure that we are being judicious about which ones go. I mean, I think that maybe there's some for new school board members. We're going to have an election coming up. If there's a new school board member, there's probably some seminars that they need to go to. If there's not, maybe we don't need to go to some of these, who knows? So, that's where I would be on it. It just seems like that it needs to be simmered a little longer. I mean, it's easy just to approve it, because if it's $9,000, it doesn't mean anything, but it's more than that. It's just, as you said, it's maybe some sort of symbolic about, spending the taxpayers' money and making sure that we do it judiciously. Again, I can go either way. I certainly think that there is some value to SBA, but I'm not so sure there's certainly not value to me to go to a meeting 4 times a year at FSBA. There's a value to go maybe once a year to something that's important, but not 4 times a year. So others there may be.
So I'm hearing that either pare it down to just SBA and then any other ones bring up for a vote to the board, or I'm also hearing tabling it. The first FSBA thing that's on here, or the first date that's on here, certain is September 18th. So when's our board meeting in September? I don't know if anybody's choosing to go to that one. Policy governance?
Who would go to the policy governance? Anybody here
Is
go to
anybody
that one?
going to that one, or can we put this off a little while? Nobody? Okay. So we could put this off a little bit and kind of, massage it a little bit and see what we
The
come up
purpose,
with.
I think, Madam Chair, I think the purpose of the statute is to allow the public, but also the statute also requires the public to comment. And so I think that's probably something, with you being transparent in your fiscal expenditures.
Sure.
That's something, do you all 5 need to go to California to a conference? I'm just saying you're not all going, but I'm just saying that's something, it does require the public input, which is why we put it on the agenda as well.
Anyone else? Ms. Rosario?
I mean, we're here talking about it now. I don't see a need, God bless you, by the way. I don't see a need for us to put it off or table it because it was on our agenda to discuss today. I don't necessarily agree with everything FSBA does in terms of training, their training workshops. I really don't. But they do have some workshops that are beneficial. And the same thing with, I'm sure, half of the organizations here. It's not about, it's about what the agenda is for that day and what you're coming away with. I know I've gone to trainings. I've gone to trainings at the Leadership Institute that were specific to Robert's Rules, and they were extremely beneficial, and I brought those back to the board. So it all depends on what the training is. You just don't know what the training will be offered, and if it's something that is not beneficial to you, you just don't go. But that one that I went to it wasn't charged to the board. It was an online training that I went to. But that opened the door for some more possibilities of whether there were some things that are in person that you just don't know. You can't predict what their schedule is going to be in advance other than FSBA. FSBA is the only one that predicts. So I think just having the list, it doesn't hurt us. It's not that we abuse this. I know that for sure. We're here talking about it now. I appreciate, the transparency. So that's where I stand with it.
Dr. Jones?
I'm okay tonight to say that, FSBA has conferences approval, and all other ones must get approval from the board, the separate ones, because there may be some here that are on the list. I've never gone to the National School Board Association, but that I could be critical at some time. I don't know. I'm not all five of us, but maybe one of us could go. Again, professional development and learning is key. I understand that, and we want to keep up with that, but I think we're okay on FSBA and FADS, and then all other ones need to be approved by the board.
Just so you know, National School Boards, FSBA has no longer a member of that.
Oh, I remember that, and I'm sorry. What was
It's
the one they joined?
COSBA.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say, if you're in leadership on FSBA, then the FSBA pays for that transportation.
Right, and I'm on,
They paid
right.
for me because I'm a leader and committee chair, and so they paid for my transportation to go to one of the trainings. I did not charge the school district for that. So, and that was really beneficial for understanding some federal
Right.
things. It was really helpful. And, able to go and lobby. I was able to go and lobby, and I did that on my own dime.
Right.
Go lobby in Tallahassee, or in Washington DC.
And I'm
So,
on- and
I
ma-
think then we should bring this item forward and then
Yeah.
just put, we approve anything that we're a member of, which is FSBA, and then all other
Right.
board travel, that board member needs to bring it as an item to the board for approval. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, I'm on 4 committees with FSBA, and most of them are on Zoom, but sometimes we have to travel, and I don't ask for reimbursement on that. And I know they're key, don't get me wrong, the federal policy, the labor relations, and so as long as I think I'm learning something to help my district.
Advocacy around that.
Oh, am I? Yeah, I forgot that one. Sorry. Thank you, Dr. Posca. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, we're on to item B, review of revisions of adoption of school board policies 5200, school attendance, and 5610, removal of out-of-school suspension, disciplinary placement, and expulsion of students and board members. Are board members being expelled? So it said board members under it. Okay, Ms. Rosario?
That's not my item.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was your item.
A conversation we had during the board meeting, the last board meeting, and it was requested to be placed on the workshop. That's
Oh,
why it's on the
okay.
workshop, but if
Got
you
it.
recall, you all continued to have the conversation after it being requested, but there was no formal request to remove it. So in terms of the item tonight, the item is presented as is.
Okay.
And I just wanted to be thorough in saying, although I think they exhausted the conversation during the last workshop, I don't know if there's conversation to be had. The item is presented as it was at the last meeting for approval tonight.
Okay, one thing I will say is there are alternative plans in, like Martin County uses Altos, where if a student is suspended, they can go to Altos, make up their work, and then I'm not sure if their absence is suspended or unexcused or excused, I'm not sure. Project Rock in St. Lucie County, same thing. A parent doesn't have to have the child home alone. They can go to Project Rock. They can get help with their work there and make up their work there. Again, I don't know if their attendance is excused or not there. Do you know?
In lieu of suspension, so we have all tosses as well, so they go into our program, they get on the bus, they go to that program.
We're still
participate.
doing Altos? I know we have done it in the past.
Yeah.
So if a child is suspended, then they could go to Altos.
Depending on the event and
What the
where the
suspension
kid
is.
is within his discipline history. So it's a decision made
Okay.
by the administrator in the midst of where that student is.
And so if it's more severe or something, then that's a point where, hey, you blew it. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay. Mr. Dyer?
I didn't see the 45 days that we spent a lot of time talking about last time, whether it was 90 or 45 days. That wasn't in here. Did we decide something I don't remember?
5 days?
Where we could do a suspension before 45, or an intervention before 45 days? Wasn't that part of the suspension?
I think you were talking about attendance, correct?
Attendance. Yeah, oh, so it's not, okay.
No, he didn't make
I
any
didn't see
changes.
it.
That's, what I understand is that they didn't make any of the changes that we discussed.
Okay. But I thought you brought up the 40, you wanted to do things, am I in the wrong?
I'm not really
Policy?
sure, but
Okay.
Mr. Rosario is correct. After circling back, meeting with the attorney, what was presented and sent to public hearing is up for approval this afternoon, or
Okay.
evening.
So where's this 45 days that you're referring to?
Maybe I've got the wrong policy. We went through quite a few policies, but there was one that I thought that we should intervene.
I remember, yeah.
If they had an attendance policy sooner than 90 days, we were going to do it at 45 days. Because
That's
we
right.
said that we knew when there was an attendance policy that, and that you guys brought it up. You were the ones who wanted it at 45 days.
I think we needed clarification from the attorney, is that correct?
I
Now that you
think-
bring that up.
I think, are we talking, I'm sorry, I was trying to draft your language for your travel thing. Are we talking about the legislative priorities and the fact that we asked the legislature to reduce or at least put an end
Maybe
to?
that's what it was. That's
In
what
Oh,
the
you're
next
right.
step?
That was part of our priority. That's to ask them because there's a statute. in
So
place.
this is according to statute. then,
Right,
the way
because
it's
right
written
now,
here.
we
Okay.
have to act within the 90 days.
I
We don't
got it.
have the ability to go before
Right.
that.
We're
90
asking
days.
for that,
We're
We're
asking for that, yes.
Okay.
but we
Got
can't
it.
get it yet.
All
Because
right.
we really can't capture those students until they've been absent the requisite number.
That clears that up.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we're good?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess my one comment, not to throw a wrench in this whole conversation, is I actually thought some of those changes we asked for were in here. In E on, I think it's page, what is it, page 2?
For attendance or for?
Yeah, this was under attendance, page 2, section E. When a student has at least 5 unexcused absences, so I thought it was actually less, so it was within a month. So we're using not 90 days, we're using a 1-month prorated system, so we can intervene sooner. So that is in here. So that, okay. I just want
That's
to make
according
sure.
to statute.
Right.
The other one is an extra ask.
Right. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, we're good on that. All right, moving to the next item. Ms. Rosario brought up Bright Futures, dual enrollment, and student progression.
Yes, so I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I've talked with Dr. Moore about this several times over the last, I don't know how many years, and I've even brought it up as from the dais and in previous workshops. You have a lot of backup for this item, just for information for you on the requirements for graduation and the requirements for Bright Futures scholarships, which, and of course, and some policies on student progression. So what I found is, or what I believe to be, through all of my conversations with multiple students and families, is that I hear all the time, over and over again, I didn't know about Bright Futures. I didn't know about Bright Futures. I didn't think my son or daughter could apply for it. And a lot of students are also being told that they're being pushed to do the Promise program with IRSC, which is great, but they're also being told you can't do both. And Bright Futures is very different. Bright Futures is separate and apart from the Promise program. It's separate and apart from graduating from Indian River, from the school district of Indian River County. But the benefit of Bright Futures is tremendous. And that's why I have here the graduation requirements. So all of the graduation requirements for a regular student in high school would be beneficial to a student to receive the Bright Future Scholarship, with the exception of 2 foreign language requirements, because Bright Futures requires 2 foreign language. It also requires, and you have the, just to kind of help you, you have the Bright Futures Student Handbook as a backup item, so you can pull that up if you need to. So with the exception of that, with the exception of the ACT, the CLT, or the SAT, those are requirements for Bright Futures that are not a requirement for high school graduation. volunteer hours, work hours, or a combination of both of those things. So if we just look at the coursework, we are sure to be able, oh, okay. He's going to pull up what I'm talking about. But, Madam Chair, may I ask, can we take just a few minutes
Yeah,
break? I
we
know
need to take-
Dr. Moore just stepped out and he's going to pull up,
Let's take a break anyway because it's past the 2 hours, so it's 2:14.
and then
We'll take a 10-minute break. All right, we are back. We are on Bright Futures item, I believe B, was it? C, thank you. All right, and we now have some documentation up. Ms. Rosario?
Yes, so we left off talking about Bright Futures, which is a scholarship available for students in the state of Florida to be used in any college or university in the state of Florida to allow them to go to school with either 100% tuition free, 75% or 75% tuition free. For the 4 different types of scholarships, and I'll kind of just review for some who are not familiar, each one of them has a different requirement. The one that is traditionally discussed are these 2 that are up on the screen. And again, these are in your backup items. So the first one is the FAS. That is the Florida Academic Scholarship. The next one below it is the FMS. That is called the Florida Medallion Scholarship. The Florida Academic Scholarship, you'll see that students have to complete 16 high school credits, which is easy to do in our school system. It's very easy for all the students to complete 4 English, 4 math, 3 natural science, 3 social science, and 2 foreign language requirements. The next qualification for the FAS is to maintain a 3.5 weighted GPA or higher. Then they would need to take and pass with the particular score that's on there, either the ACT, the CLT, or the SAT. And they would need either 100 hours of volunteer credit, volunteer, a sign sheet, paid work hours, or a combination of both. If a student can satisfy all of those requirements there, they go to school anywhere in Florida, 100% free tuition, 100% paid. Like, how every single student is not taking advantage of this is beyond me. But I think that we need to do better on this because there are still a handful of students who do not know or who think that they can't do it, and they can. The next one, the FMS, is the only difference with the FMS is the 3.0 GPA. So if a student has a minimum of 3.0 and falls within the FMS requirements, they would get 75% of their tuition free. If you go to, I'm going to ask if you can go to page 6 on there. Yeah, on the bottom of page 6, it says Gold Seal Vocational Scholars. That's the next scholarship that's available under Bright Futures. This one is funded for students who are interested in enrolling in a career education or certification program in Florida. For this one, the qualifications are slightly different. These students would have to achieve a required minimum GPA of 3.0. They would have to take 3 full credits in a single career and technical education program, achieve a required minimum 3.5 unweighted GPA in the career and education courses, achieve the required minimum score of ACT, SAT, in this case, or the PERT, and complete 30 volunteer hours, 100 paid hours, or a combination of both. And then if you can go 2 pages further to page 8, this would be the 4th scholarship. It is a Gold Seal CAPE scholarship. This one here is awarded to students who are enrolled or plan to enroll in a career education or certificate program similar to the other one. But upon completion of an associate's in science, in the science degree program, that articulates to a Bachelor of Science degree, a GSC scholar may also receive an award for a maximum of 60 credit hours towards a bachelor's degree. And for this one, the qualification would be to earn a minimum of 5 post-secondary credit hours through CAPE industry certification, and complete 30 volunteer hours. And I believe for this one, there is no minimum GPA requirement for this scholarship. And so the more that I research this and the more that I talk to students, we're not doing, I think this is an area that we can certainly do better. But I also think that this is, for me, it's like a no-brainer. Like, why are we not pushing students as much as possible to go to school for free or for 75%, you know, of their tuition? Like, to me, it's like, if you have a student who's at a 2.5 GPA, they are so close to getting that 3.0. Like, why aren't we, what are we not doing for that 2.5, that 2.6, that 2.7 student to just get them a little up to that GPA area? So the graduate profile that was sent to you all by Dr. Moore by email, I think yesterday, he sent it. I requested this in June, or at the beginning of July. It was sent to you all with some updated information on Sunday, yesterday. So you have that. If we can pull that up. And you all have it in your email as well, so. And Dr. Moore, chime in if I say anything that wrong. What we see here, and this is very, very brief, the one thing that I really should have asked was how many students applied for Bright Futures. That we don't know, right? Because that would really tell us a lot. But just in general, if we look at Sebastian River High School, they had 438 graduates. Vero Beach High School had 644 graduates. From each of the high schools, for the total number, and this is 2, 4, oh, that should have been 3. 2, 3, 3 is military, by the way. 2, 3, and 4, for 2, 3, and 4. If you subtract the total of 2, 3, and 4 from the total graduates, in Sebastian River High School, there are 87 students that are missing in terms of have not committed to a college or a university, have not committed to a military, or have not committed to a vocational tech, trade, or certification program.
Can I clarify? It says Florida University. They could have committed to a school outside of Florida.
Yeah, I don't know if Florida, yeah, I don't know. It's Florida. You did all? Florida.
It's all self-reported, keep in mind as well.
Yeah, self-report. So again, it's not, so yeah, so this is self-reported from what, so it may not be 100%, but it's a good gauge, right? So let's take a look at it as a gauge. So if we, so let's say there are 87, right? Let's just assume that number. Again, it's just a gauge. At Vero Beach, if you do the same math, it comes out to 188 students who have not committed to a Florida college or university, military or vocational tech. So, and again, overall, what we don't know is how many of our graduates did apply for Bright Futures, because then I think we'd be able to also tell how many students we can actually get to apply to Bright Future, for a Bright Future scholarship in some way, shape, or form. Overall, the statute on Bright Futures, there's no requirement for us as a school district to incorporate Bright Futures in there's no requirement that says that we have to have a particular program or that we have to have a particular thing that makes students apply. So this isn't about forcing students to apply, but I think that as a school district, I think we're missing a niche. We're missing this one area that I think if we were to embrace the idea that every single student should choose a pathway for Bright Futures, at the end of that pathway, if you choose not to accept it, that's up to you. But to get you there, to get you to that point to say, hey, you have 100% of your school free right now. You can choose any college or university in the entire state of Florida, any vocation program in the entire state of Florida to go to for free or for 75%. Like, why are we not doing that? And so, of course, I've had this conversation with Dr. Moore. Nothing that I am suggesting is going to take away. I think it actually would add from our conversations, and of course I'll let him speak, it would add, because if we are benefiting students in college, in classwork, in courses, in GPA, in SAT and ACT, or helping them raise those scores, surely that's going to transfer into our overall school grades, our district grades, our learning gains. I mean, all of that learning is going to transfer in some way, shape, or form. And at the end of the day, we are doing best by kids because we're giving every kid an opportunity for life after high school. That's really the whole idea. And what they do with it is up to them. The one thing about Bright Futures that I can say about military and why military is there is because even if you're going into the military, you can still apply for Bright Futures, get accepted. If you're going into the military, Bright Futures will put your scholarship on hold for I think 4 or 5 years, and when you come back from the military, you can access this. So then they would have their GI Bill and Bright Futures. So if we have a student who's going into the military, I just don't want anyone to say, well, you're going into the military, so you can't use it. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. I want us to be able to say to every single student, from the moment they enter into high school in 9th grade, we want to get you here. Doesn't matter what other pathway you're going to take in high school, like whatever engineering in high school, or if you're going to study mechanics, if you're going to study programming, if you're going to study advertising, whatever other areas you're going to study in school, we can still get you. The end game is still going to get you 100% or 75% of a scholarship, and that's our goal. If you don't choose it again in Florida and you want to go out of the state, great, that's fine. But at least we can check off these boxes to help you get there. So there are some policies that are that I put in the back in the packet. I did talk with the superintendent about it. What I would like is to just ask him for a review of these policies and see with him and his team. I've also talked with Kelly Besura about this. How can we incorporate this within our policies, within our practices? How can we be the first district to do this, to make Bright Futures a reachable goal for all of our students and help transform education just yet another step in the right direction for kids? And so that's what all of this information is, and I'll open it up for, Madam Chair, if we can have Dr. Moore first before the board members. Dr. Moore, do you want to add anything?
Dr. Moore, do you want to speak now, or do you want board members to input? Okay.
Through the chair, I think the conversations have been extremely fruitful, and I think the work that Student Services has done over the last 5 years has been a tremendous lift. in terms of transitioning from make an appointment to see your counselor to creating programs of study. I think Ms. Becerra and team were here a few board meeting or a few workshops ago to introduce the programs of study, which ensures that you have a pathway, regardless of the program, whether it's an academic or vocational programming. The idea of aligning or embedding the Bright Futures into that is a great idea. And as I reflect back on my own actions, is like, well, yeah, I think part of the reason it's not there is because of the Promise program. And the Promise program is unique to the surrounding counties, where Indian River State College says, we're going to pay for you to go free. They're going to use their foundation to fund your education. But let me pause there. That's a fact. But at the same time, as a dad who really appreciated Bright Futures, there is an opportunity to embed that into our program of study. And the program of study, in my mind, is a map or a pathway of saying, if you take A, B, C, and D, you will qualify for 100, or B. I think Ms. Becerra, Ann and team are in the process of creating that framework to bring back to me, to bring back to you, in terms of elevating all students. And when I say all students, I think there is significant opportunity for the students at, maybe Promise program is great, but if we can push them to a state university, or we can push them to an Ivy League, which obviously that may not necessarily work for Bright Futures, but at the same time, part of our next 5 years is to really, we have created a problem for ourselves, right? And the problem is we've drastically increased the rate of proficient students. Now we got to drastically increase the offerings in which they're going to be able to attain based on their academic success. So I know the last, I would say we get schools open, we will be bringing something in terms of the enhancement of aligning Bright Futures into what we currently have in terms of making sure we can do that. Now, what that ultimately looks like is conversations yet to be had, whether it's defying diploma options, which I've said. In Miami, we had those diploma, whether it's the gold seal or national seal, we created and aligned diplomas to each of those specific options. Why? Because I'm sitting there from a counselor's perspective, when you're talking about you just need these minimum requirements, that's not really a great sell. But if you just take on these 2 more foreign languages, now you qualify for this. And if you take this number of hours of community service, now you qualify for this. It's connecting that. And we're doing a lot of that specific work and making sure students are just not picking classes, but defining classways that lead to what is next for them. So I fully anticipate additional and embedded information building on what student services and counselors have already done coming in the future.
And before I do that, thank you, Dr. Moore. Before I open it up, if it's okay, I just wanted to clarify the Promise program is only a 2-year program. The Promise program with IRSC, although it's wonderful to give them a free 2-year, it's only 2 years. So it doesn't, if a student wants to then transfer to a 4-year university, at that point, it's all on them. Whereas in this case, they may have the ability to have the Bright Futures back them up if they want to transfer to another university later on. And the other thing that I was going to say, and I'll add in having this conversation with Dr. Moore, I love the idea of the gold seal, the gold seal diploma or the FAS seal diploma or something like that to just indicate yet something else that the student has accomplished. But those are the kinds of things that I would like to allow the superintendent to take a look at all these policies and just with his team kind of peruse over them and see where are some of these areas that we can embed some of these programmatic and end goal things for students in this particular area.
Mr. Dyer, you've been dying to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean.
I thought you wanted to speak a
Seems
while
like
ago.
Seems like certainly an interesting interesting idea, and there's no real downside to it that I see. It sounds like a project that could be really great for AI, looking at what a student has taken and doing and making recommendations as to options in concordance with the guidance counselor. You know, I don't know how this I'm not sure how this is communicated in the state. I'm aware of Bright Futures, and not sure what the communication is and whether it's a response. Certainly, I don't guess it's the responsibility of the school district. It's just out there in the ether somewhere. So, you know, maybe it's a parental responsibility as well, but I think the school district certainly could, you know, provide information, and part of it could be, I mean, it just seems like if you have these requirements and here's your report card and here's what you've taken, it could just be, you know, something that is written on your report card. Here's what you need to do to get 100% Bright Futures in Florida. You know, it could be as simple as that, which could also be used with a guidance counselor. So, I mean, I think it's there's no downside to this. You know, it's fine. I got the point after about 2 minutes, though.
Yeah.
That was
Dr. Jones?
my issue, is I had the point about 30 minutes ago.
Yep.
Going through this as a principal and then a parent, all three of my children received the 75%. They were close on that 100, but they didn't get it. 2 from Vero Beach High School, then my younger son went to Sebastian River High School when I was principal. I think what we need to do is, first of all, if there's still the department chairs, Jessica Wood and Kim O'Keefe, I worked this as a principal. We started in 9th grade assemblies with this information and continued it at every assembly, and then whatever the guidance counselors meant went into classes. So that information is out there. Now, if we have to lift it up a little bit, okay, but that information is out there, and I would like our maybe 2 guidance chairs come in and let us know what they're doing. See, a lot of times we don't know all the specifics. I remember what it used to be, but what is it now, and how can we continue to bring other kids in? And with Ms. Bieber looking at that and Ms. Basur, I know it will be wonderful. I'm not sure, I think someone said 188 not committed to either go into Florida College or something. Some of our kids go right to work. They go right to work. And then sometimes they can start doing maybe the IRSC Promise Program, and that's how a lot of them work. I mean, when you look at our economic issues here, a lot of our kids will start with State College, you know, part-time, but they're working. So maybe that's where some of that is. But I think if anything, Dr. Moore, I would like to see what are they already doing, like at our high schools. Again, I remember what they used to do to bring children in. And that started in 9th grade because we started saying, these are how many hours you need for volunteer. This is what you need to do on this test. And Dr. Moore, are we doing the PSAT for every sophomore now or junior? Okay, was it PSAT? Okay. This can help you see where you will be when that score is needed. So a lot of our kids miss 100% because of that score. So the SAT or ACT. But anyway, I'd like to see what we're doing now, and I could go on to, I haven't been onto the guidance websites to start this school year, but I go on to them and see where they are, what we need to do for our kids. So let's see what we're doing now, and if we can make things any better, okay.
Dr. Pasca?
Yeah, this was a helpful discussion about the scholarship opportunities. Certainly, we definitely
Is your mic on?
This was a helpful discussion for the community, just to understand the different scholarship options available to them. So hopefully, they can even come and watch this recap and request more information, but we definitely want our guidance counselors, obviously, educating families about the scholarship opportunities. Hopefully, they'll continue to do that. That's it.
Okay. Is it in focus, this information for parents, that they know about Bright Futures? I'm just curious because.
I don't know if Focus would be the landing spot for that.
Okay, well, that's where parents go, that's what I'm asking. Because, excuse me, when I was a parent before Focus, My kids are older. They receive Bright Futures, but I remember being in on that conversation. Excuse me. As a parent, my responsibility is to also work with the school district to make sure that my kids are focused on what they think their futures are, be it college or work or whatever it is. And so I remember in 9th grade, there was a meeting and parents were asked to come and we were told about all this information. So that's what I'm saying, maybe it'd be a good thing to put in focus so parents, they have that one-stop shop. But some parents do prepaid scholarships, so that's an avenue that they take. Some kids don't get the test scores, so they can't get Bright Futures. That's why they're not taking advantage of it. They're trying, but they can't. Believe it or not, there are some athletes, handful now, that don't need it because they're doing the NIL thing, and they don't need that money. They can donate it back to us. Some are going straight into work. Some are using the Promise program. So there's a lot of reasons why those kids aren't reflect on there. And then, of course, out of state. So, for example, my niece and nephew, both, they had prepaid scholarships, and then they qualified for Bright Futures, and they both went out of state. One came back and decided to go to a state school. Guess what? Couldn't get Bright Futures back. You have to do it right out of high school. So there are some requirements that parents might not be aware of. They were aware of that because they knew the requirement. But there are some things that, as a parent, you need to get educated on. You need to know, I have a high schooler, their path is college, what do they need to do to get there? And so, you know, I'm surprised that people don't know about it because I knew very much about it when I was a parent. But I knew that that was our focus as a family, is my kids, you know, trying to get them to college. It's not everybody's focus.
I think we do a good job of making sure most parents are informed. We've added a 8th grade orientation, we've added 9th grade orientation, we've created the profiles to make sure that we can streamline on identifying which courses the when students are taking. I think this is a additional layer because there are parents, like all of us, who will be completely informed, but I also, you know, there are parents where we're going to have to make sure we have safeguards on top of safeguards we all need an improvement plan on microphones today.
Just keep it on like me.
It's one additional thing, you know, the idea of the diploma distinctions is something very tangible for students. So it's just, I think our counselors are doing a great job and have grown tremendously over the last 5 years. But if we could get a handful of kids, which is the words Jackie said, then let's do it. And if we could propel all students forward by increasing access through funding, yeah, let's do it.
Well, you mentioned the diploma idea, and that's a good idea. It's been done before. There's something called a Regents Diploma in New York. I got one, and it was very much a planned progress of your study. So you had to have passed all of your Regents exams in order to get that diploma. And you have a Regents exam in every single course you take. And so to get the diploma, of course, I don't know what that was wonderful about, but it opened more doors for you to get into college, but it also gave you a different color of sash when you went to walk across the stage. So, and some people are very much about that, getting those cords and those sashes. So if we can do something like that to incentivize, you know, kids to want to get this, that's great.
It's terrific. Why not? It's free.
That's right. Well, it's not free. Nothing's free.
Yes, that's
Somebody
true.
paid for that. All right, we're to item D, book fairs.
I'm still on this one.
Oh, we are?
So the other thing that I was going to ask Dr. Moore, are we doing, and it just dawned on me just a little bit, do we offer test prep course?
SAT prep, yeah, we offer that.
Do we offer that as like an after-school program, or is it a course?
It's course embedded into the day.
It's a course embedded into the day. And who takes this course?
You would sign up for that particular course. So it would be an elective on the front end, and then on the other side, it's students who need a concordance score in order to graduate.
So when is that course offered? Is it offered?
Throughout the school day. It's third period, fourth
I
period.
mean, like, is it offered to ninth graders, 10th graders, 11th graders? I would
say
imagine 12th grade is a little too late.
11th and 12th would be the majority of students who are participating in the course.
So if we offered something like that from 9th to 10th grade, even if there was like test prep 1, test prep 2, test prep 3, because I don't think you can, these tests are predominantly, they're not content-based, they're strategy-based.
Right. And then
So they can certainly gain information from test prep, but if we're prepping or taking a test or a test prep course in 9th grade, then when you're sitting for your PSAT, you have a higher percentage of getting a better score on your PSAT for
Right, so
future scholarships in that particular area.
And Ms. Becerra presented a new initiative last year where she, very specific training by her team to work with students who are right there to get them the highest PSAT score possible. So I'll resend that information to the board. It is a very specific program that leads them into the sitting for the PSAT. Now that by default helps with bright futures, but ultimately, as Doc says all the time, the number of merit scholars that we had
Right.
over the years has dwindled down, and we're starting to see those numbers come back in place, or well see them, because this is an initiative you start going into 10th grade when you sit for the PSAT to grow those numbers back up.
So now we have the added CLT, right? Because before it was always SAT, ACT, now you have the CLT as an option. How would we as a district, or what are your suggestions as a district in terms of a test prep course for students? I imagine the SAT and the ACT are not too far apart from each other historically, but the CLT is quite different. And so how would we train and test or prepare students in 10th grade and 11th grade in terms of a test prep course? You may not have that answer right away, but what do you think?
I have an initial response.
Yeah.
If you look at the CLT numbers that are provided, you can see 159 at Sebastian River and 432. That test is basically, within our setting, 2.5 years old, because it is a concordance score. So in these prep courses, it's very specific to the assessments that's coming up. So not to speak for the school sites, but CLT is very different than you can only take SAT 4 times a year, ACT 4 times a year. The classical test, there's a number of days in between. So we've shifted a great deal to CLT, and the state has found a great deal of success. Now, what's the natural response to that? The state increases the concordance score as they get more data, and rightfully so, they have done that. But we're still very comfortable in what our test prep teachers are preparing them to do. So it is get them ready for SLT, okay. All right, you have retakes coming up, let's maximize every opportunity, but the overwhelming majority in those test prep courses is around CLT, because you have the most number of opportunities to sit for that assessment. And each time you take an assessment, you don't pass it, you learn where you need additional support and guidance.
So I've heard some parents, so I'm glad to hear that this new system that Ms. Becerra has put into play, you said within the last year, is what I heard in terms of test prep, because obviously we've had this conversation on this particular area for several years, and prior, there are multiple families who have never heard of a test prep course in our system. So I'm glad to hear that we're going to move in that direction. Would those be the sorts of changes and modifications within a student's program that we can incorporate to be more consistent, to get them to that end goal of receiving a Bright Future Scholarship? Is that one of the efforts?
The efforts is to identify, there are students who are going to sit for the PSAT and hit the required scores.
Yeah.
And then based on the data, we do a regression looking at grades and previous assessments to identify, hey, with this additional support over the course of the beginning of the school year, we can drastically change the funding reality for this particular student and their family. So it is looking at the data and saying, let's provide this additional resource by A, making the student and the family aware. It is a above and beyond system of support. We did it last year for incoming 10th graders, so this year we'll do it a second time. So we'll begin to see the fruits of that labor, and not next year's graduating class, the following graduating class.
Okay, so moving forward, thank you for the support on this, board members. Thank you, Dr. Moore, for your input on all of this, and Ms. Besora as well, and Ms. Bieber. Moving forward with all of this information, are we okay with just allowing you to bring this back to your team and kind of coming up with some brainstorm ideas of what to look for moving forward? Because I'd be happy to bring together an item to make it official and charge you with the discovery and, just kind of looking into this, or however way we want to word it.
I don't think I need an item to be charged to do this work. I think we have stacked our priorities in terms of what we have to do right now and what we have to do in October and November to make sure that we're ready to roll out programming to build upon some of the items that were discussed here. So I'm comfortable that we're going to grow this initiative as we move into the upcoming school year.
So we're going to keep this as an initiative moving forward. Is that what I'm hearing? But we're not supposed to make official actions in a workshop. We got to make official actions in a
I don't
business
think
meeting.
this work is dependent upon an item to improve it. I think it's all on the back of the superintendent to charge staff to create programming and systems, which I think I do at a pretty high level, to grow this. So I'm more than comfortable in terms of what Ms. Becerra and team are doing to grow this work.
Okay. So the policies that you see on the board docs there, and taking a look at those and bringing those back to us if there need to be any changes to them moving forward. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know that we've talked about some of those, especially like with the graduation requirements, if we will eventually consider gold seals or, FAS diploma seals or something like that.
Madam Chair?
I mean, obviously, right now, we're not looking at immediate policy changes, but moving forward, are these acceptable for you here?
I have to look at the specific policies, and if they're en route to be approved, or they need to be approved based on any recommendations that I would make, then obviously we'd have to change or
Perfect.
shift policies.
Totally,
Dr. Jones?
Totally okay with that.
I just want to reiterate, as people are working on this, I'd still like to hear from our department chairs, guidance counselors, what they are doing now, what we are doing now and how it is working. And then, of course, if you look on our school websites, you can see for student and families, finding your path for higher education. Each Sebastian River High School, Vero Beach High School has all the components there. You can take a look at it for our parents. And I'd like to hear from Ms. Wood and Ms. O'Keefe exactly how they're starting this in the 9th grade, because I don't think this is like a reinvention. We're doing this. And if we want to make it a highlight on making our parents aware about bright futures. And again, I'm pretty sure looking at even at this information on the website for the schools, they are starting that in 9th grade, looking at things. So
Her daughter, which is doing very well, by the way. And pretty much
So there is that
everything that
pathway.
we put there is in fact in focus with a big green check, with the exception of,
When they fulfill that requirement, they.
with the exception of, what was the one thing you just said? The test. Yes. The assessment. So
it is in focus.
and those are some things we could just remind our parents, because I remember looking at the percentage of how many used Focus last year. It was quite high, but making sure our high school parents know that it's there and you can monitor and you can look at and, you know, and talking about SAT, ACT, and the classic test, which is now the concordance scores. I just saw those the other day. And I'm hearing from the counselors the kids do better, or they think the classical is easier. So anything that will help our students get a concordance score to graduate, you know, I'm for that. I just, let's see what we have and build upon that if we need to, and then just help our parents, remind them how to get into Focus and to look at that pathway, because seems pretty clear there.
Okay. Are we moving on to the next item, book fairs?
Yeah, so I have book fairs on here. Again, I've talked about this before. I just wanted an update if the superintendent has one on book fairs. That's always seems to be, recently, it seems to be a controversial topic because of the whole concern about books and making sure that books don't have certain material, certainly any sexual material or anything of that nature. And so Scholastic has traditionally been a book fair vendor that has done book fairs in schools for eons. I kind of just did a Google search on Scholastic book fairs, and the last real article that I can find on Scholastic book fairs was in 2023. And it just indicates that Scholastic reversed their controversial decision to segregate diverse books. And so the double negative there always gets me, but essentially there was a point where they would segregate diverse books and then they decided not to segregate diverse books. And with the recent court ruling from Mahmoud versus Taylor and the Supreme Court's decision on that, my concern is if we are inviting Scholastic or some other book fairs, let's just say Scholastic because they're the ones that we've been using. If we're inviting Scholastic and they're not adhering to some of the state requirements or obviously this recent ruling from the Supreme Court of the United States, ensuring that parents have the opportunity to opt out of certain books if the books are all mixed together and the students are still exposed, then that puts us in a very, very difficult situation and we don't want that to happen. So what are we doing in terms of Scholastic book fairs and book fairs in general?
Through the chair, so book fairs, we have looked at it at a pretty deep level. Dr. Shafty doesn't do anything that's not very, very thorough, making sure that the books provided in our book fairs are in fact Florida friendly. So with this new ruling, she will once again go back, make sure principals have everything that they need to have to make sure that they're in full compliance. So we have done a number of steps to go back to make sure not to create any issues for us. I think we're ultimately beyond that, and we'll do everything in our power to stay beyond that, to keep the main thing the main thing. So I think the work that Dr. Shafty has done in partnership with principals to make sure before they put out the information, parents are notified, and B, what's available through the book fairs is Florida friendly. That's the only update I have.
So we're still using Scholastic?
Maybe there's a school site uses a different company. They might, but ultimately the principals are making that decision. I think the majority do use Scholastic.
Yeah, I would be very careful with Scholastic. You don't want someone to be exposed to something and then it's going to come down to you going in front of the State Board of Education, and we don't want that to happen.
Firsthand?
Yes.
So you are 100% correct.
Yeah. So I did find one that I thought was pretty interesting because there aren't any, except for maybe a handful, of book fair companies. I found one called Skytree Book Fairs that seems to be a pretty decent alternative to Scholastic. So I'm sharing that with you publicly to look into, Dr. Moore, and see if maybe that might be a good alternative or find another alternative. I think book fairs are extremely important. And even the book vendor machines, which we have talked about before, I love those machines. They're like candy machines, but obviously not just for candy, it's for books. But at either rate, Skytree Book Fairs, I think it's skytreebookfairs.org or .com. So if you wouldn't mind taking a look at that as an alternative and talking with your staff about those options, so that we are not, I used pickle once before, we are not in that kind of situation with Scholastic, which seems to be very controversial.
Sorry, I was just looking up Skytree Book Fairs. They're very interesting.
Very, very simple.
They exist to protect childhood innocence while instilling a love of reading in the next generation. That's their mission, so it's interesting. We should look into it. Okay.
Just a comment?
Anything else? Yes.
Yeah, I did talk to a couple people when I saw this on the agenda, and as we all know, categoricals are not all categoricals anymore, and we lost a categorical of libraries. When I was a principal, the categorical for high school libraries was around $2,000, and that money had to go specifically to the media center. And obviously, I trust Dr. Shafty and the principals and the media specialists to make sure the books that are coming for children to view are appropriate. But we can, and I used to do this for my libraries many years ago. 50% of the sales could go to the librarian then, and then she could get books for the library or equipment and so forth. Since right now, any media or library money has to come from the principal's discretionary. And we all know those have gone a little bit lower, where it used to be an exact amount from the categorical, but they've been rolled into the general fund. Looks like we have more money, but we do not. So I just believe for any book fair, Dr. Shafty and the principals, the media specialists, make sure that our children are viewing books that are appropriate. And obviously for media service, parents can still opt out. And I guess they could also opt out for book fairs. I don't know if that's on there, but they still have the opt-out, for any of the media books that we have. So just know that this does kick money back into our media services, and without that categorical, they haven't been receiving as much money.
Anybody else? Okay. Our next item is E, potential impacts on district programs, budgets, operations due to federal grant funding holds from the Department of Education. Is that item still?
No, because we got
already
an
have the money.
update, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we can skip that one.
I forgot that was on there. Yeah, that was from, I don't know, weeks ago.
Okay, next one is discussion F, classical school sixth grade curriculum. Mr. Rosario.
Yes, so I first brought classical as an item in 2023. It was finally fully supported in 2024. And then fast forward on October 23rd, Dr. Moore said, and I'll quote, "There is 100% commitment to classical curriculum. We actually put it in bold in the item. It is everything that we have communicated to parents, to the members of the faculty and staff, that yes, this is going to be a true classical school rooted in classical curriculum, and we are fully committed to that. We also added language to allow for next year's 2nd through 4th graders to be exposed to elements of classical education." Now, that was in October 23rd. Since then, we have added or changed the transition to include an incoming 6th grade, so their current 5th grade would go to 6th grade as their first 6th grade middle school this year, opening up this year in August. On February 10th of this year, we received an email confirming the curriculum for classical school 2B. Let me pull that up. To include, and 2B, Singapore Math, Great Books, Explode the Code, New American Cursive Penmanship, and Story of the World. All of which are really great classical curriculum. But we have yet to vote on anything. Nothing has come to us as a board to vote on the curriculum. And school's opening in about 3 weeks, so I'm concerned about the curriculum being used. So if we're opening with the commitment to open up schools, with the commitment to open up a classical school using classical curriculum, and we don't have classical curriculum approved or purchased as of yet. Now, I know that there have been really great PD that has been going on in terms of the tenets of classical and the trivium, but there, again, there's no curriculum. There's no actual books that we have approved. So I put this on the agenda to get an update on where we are in terms of that, so that we are all fully prepared when school opens in the next 3 weeks. I think 3 weeks. Two, even less.
Dr. Moore, want to speak to that?
Correct. We did bring that information to the board. Our core curriculum is across the board, all grade levels. Supplemental curriculum, we did let the board know exactly what that was. So in the K and 1 space, that is exactly what's happening. As referenced, the tenets of classical will take place in 2 through 6. One of the drivers in our decision-making process as to shift, as it said in that particular item, to transition from one way of educating to another would be a burden for the student themselves as well as the educator themselves, which is why we made the decision to do those particular tenets of classical. And we extended that through 6. That's exactly what we communicated to the 6th grade families, all of which are extremely excited to go. There's not one parent who will be walking into the classical school next year who isn't aware of what the curriculum is going to be for their particular kids. So in K-1-2, Mr. Rosario just cited the curriculum that we brought to you, identified, purchased, trained. The teachers that will stand in front of those students have received just about 1.5 years of very focused training. Same thing with the administrators, the instructional coaches, Ms. Basura's support team. So it's been very, very, very strategic. So as we get into the incoming years, as we go, we add on to 2nd, and then 7th, with the tenants, we'll come back to the board saying this would be any shifts or modifications or additions to what that curriculum would be. So we're set, we're locked, we're loaded, and I'm sure I'll see you all there on the first day of school.
Dr. Moore, you said that we voted on the curriculum? We didn't vote on the curriculum. When did we vote on the curriculum?
No, you did not vote on the curriculum.
You just said that we voted.
I'll have to go back and listen to what I said. It wasn't a core curriculum, which didn't require a vote. It's a supplemental curriculum at one specific school. So we brought it to the board. We discussed it as a board. There was a lot of excitement and energy regarding what that curriculum was.
What I'm confused
Any
is
other
how
board
is that supplemental? Because it's supposed to be the curriculum, not supplemental.
From a district's perspective, that is one school who is using in 2 grade levels that curriculum.
Right, but how is that supplemental? Because for that one school that is supposed to be classical,
It is.
that is the curriculum that was emailed to us that would be used for them, but it's not as supplemental. It is the curriculum. It is the only classical curriculum to be used in the entire district. So how is that supplemental? It's not supplementing their current curriculum or the current curriculum today. That's what I meant.
In my mind, it is a supplemental curriculum because it is a subset of schools and grade levels, not requiring board approval. But if the Board attorney says we need to get that approved. Sure, we can get that approved.
So we'll,
Okay, can
Will
we hear
you
from
look-
other
yeah,
board members? Mr. Dyer?
If we need a vote, I'd be happy to vote to execute the way the superintendent is planning to roll it out. I mean, we have discussed this many, many times ad nauseum. I believe that you're on the right track. I know that you have a vested interest in wanting to make the classical school very successful. I heard how you were going to do sixth grade, and that you were going to continue from the current curriculum, because it would be too abrupt of a change to go to classical if you hadn't had the classical training all the way through school. So if we need to vote on that, I'll be happy to vote on it. And, you know, I think you're committed to making it right and to developing a first-class classical school. I believe that you and your team have the ability to execute.
Thank you.
well,
Dr. Jones, go ahead.
When I saw Miss Justice at the pool the other day, and I looked at her boat, not GYAC.
Don't comment on her boat,
No, I'm
please.
not going to tell you. She said, "Doc, less is more." And she's talking about the classical curriculum. And I mean, they are ready to roll. I think about that, and I remember everything that you said clearly on the K-1 and getting things ready. And I think about what we've done at Fellsmere with dual enrollment. I'm sorry, dual language. K1, 2, and it keeps flowing up. I think I've said this before. If my grandkids were here, they'd be at Fellsmere Elementary. I mean, the program that we're doing, you can't just all throw it in at once, even with the PD that we have this year. And I went to one of the meetings when we were naming the school at Pelican Island, and I talked to a few parents. I mean, they were ready. They understood what was coming down the pike. They understand the growth. I mean, each year we're going to get better, because basically we still have to teach our standards, and the standards the way we're doing it in the classical way. And the research that I have done on that, I think we're doing a good job. I think we'll continue to get better. I think the K-1 is ready to roll, and putting that at sixth grade, when those kids K through 5 had something different, very, very, very hard to do. Not that we couldn't do it a little bit, but I'm clear on what we're doing, and I support what the superintendent has said, and I think it's clear to our parents. Thank you.
Dr. Posca? Okay. Ms. Rosario?
I don't know if there's anything to vote on now. I think we should have Ms. Enville kind of take a look at it and see if we're okay with the way things are right now, then fine. But if something needs to change, then let legal kind of take a look into it. And if we need to vote on it, then we'll vote on it then.
Or we could just add an item to the agenda to vote on supporting the superintendent in his execution of the classical school.
We've already done that. We've already done that in the vote for the classical school.
Well, it doesn't sound like it went through.
Doesn't sound
very
like it.
well.
Well, the question is only about curriculum. It's not about the execution of opening up the school. It's just about the curriculum.
Execution of the school is curriculum.
Not necessarily. There's a lot more involved in that. So right now, the question is only about if the curriculum is going to come to us for a vote, if it's supplemental or if it's a full curriculum. That's all.
Could I add an item to tonight's agenda to vote?
You can't do that
certainly-
here.
You can later on tonight on the
Okay.
dais.
All right, good.
Okay. All right, can we move on to invocation? Because we're running out of time.
Okay, so invocation, just wanted to bring this up because, just thought about it. We have our invocation during the first 5 minutes or at 5:55 or whenever that is, from our meetings. And maybe we should just do it at 6 o'clock. So that's where I'm coming from. I was looking at everything. I, talked to Ms. Enville about it. I read the information, even going back from Sid Ansbacher. The biggest, I understand some of the concerns about it, but the biggest takeaway for me in this is the definition of invocation is not the same as prayer. And that our resolution uses the term invocation, not prayer. And the Webster and that Webster defines invocation as the act of petitioning for help or support, whereas prayer is petitioning to God. And so, since we have a resolution for a invocation, and we are not requiring it, there is a clause at the beginning that's, talking about voluntary attendance, whatever you want to call that thing, that is stated. The same people that, well, maybe not always the same, people that are there for the 5:50 or 5:55 would be there at 6 o'clock, but we are opening up our meetings, and we are just wanted to have the conversation about having invocation at 6 and not 5:55.
Okay. Mr. Dyer.
Semantics in terms, should we call it prayer?
No,
Rather than invocation? I mean, I'm trying to understand if
it's called invocation now.
Yeah.
It's in our resolution as invocation. The legal standard for invocation is allowed because we're not praying unto God. It's not called a prayer in our.
Yet we are, so which is terrific, but we're doing it not in the, I think that we've had attorneys, from what I understand, 3 attorneys have all said that we're doing it correctly right now. So I don't know, maybe that's the issue.
Not doing it incorrect, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm not saying that we're doing it incorrectly. I'm just asking for us to have a discussion about having it at 6 instead of 5:55.
Okay, let's get consensus. What do you want?
What's that?
What do you want?
I like
6
it
or
the way,
5?
I like it the way it is. I think that we're legally compliant, and I think it's great to open with a prayer to start our meeting, but I think that we also have to be aware of what the statutes or the legal requirements are. I mean, I'm all for praying, and so, I mean, that's not the issue. The issue is what we're constrained to do by our legal requirements. And I just think that we ought to follow the law.
Dr. Jones?
What we're doing now works. If it's not broke, don't need to fix it. And making a change on this could cause some issues, and we've got too much to do without any other issues. I like it the way it is.
Okay, Dr. Pasca?
I have no issue moving it to the 6 o'clock time. I don't expect there to be too many real problems with that. I have no problem moving it to the 6 o'clock timeline, barring any kind of legal review issues, but I don't think there'll be any issue moving it. I'm fine with that.
Okay, I have a concern.
Chair,
Yeah.
I have 2 things, if I can jump in real
Sure.
quick. It's going to require you to change the resolution that you did in 2015, 2015-08. It's also going to require you to do a change to school board policy 8800, which currently provides that the board shall not include religious invocations, benedictions, or formal prayer at any school-sponsored event. And it's just before that moment of assignment, so you're going to have to do 2 things.
Right.
If you want
So-
to move this forward.
Is that from us, or is that state law?
No, your policy says that. So the issue is because students are often present at school board meetings, that's where courts will apply a stricter scrutiny. Remember last time we talked about the legislature does it, so why can't
Right.
we? Practices that can pass constitutional muster in a city council meeting is different than what the school board will be held to. So I think the way you're doing it now is the safest. You could face a challenge if you change things. But if you do change things, then I would recommend that we would have to do the policy change, take public input on that policy, also do the resolution, and/or then also implement a strict procedure and guidelines for choosing who would be offering that at the beginning of each meeting so that you're not discriminatory. If you remember the case Williamson that I sent to you in Brevard, the board members, it was the Board of County Commissioners, they were actually choosing their own person to come speak, and they were intentionally excluding different groups. And so that's where it got them into a lot of trouble, I think to the tune of almost $500,000 in legal fees. And so we can certainly consider it, but I would need consensus from the board to move forward.
So, yeah, I have a concern, and first of all, I brought it back because we weren't doing it. And so I brought it back because I think it is important to do. But I also think it's important for each person in that room to have a say in the meeting, and if they don't appreciate that, then they're not part of the meeting because they have to leave. So I think having it right before the meeting allows people that want to be there and be part of it to be part of it, and people that don't want to be are not excluded from the meeting. So I think don't mess with it. It's fine. We've had 3 legal opinions. Attorneys have passed bar. They know more than we do. So at least on that. So I appreciate all your hard work on that.
Not on some
And
other
thank you
It's okay.
thank you for your work on that.
So the next thing on here is regarding patriotic programs. I just wanted to remind the superintendent, which I'm sure he already knows, about the moment of silence. We all received a
Letter.
You may not have, yeah, you may have received the letter. But the policy actually is very specific, dealing with the moment of silence, and that school principals of each public school shall require teachers in the first period classrooms in elementary schools and 1 minute, and in secondary schools, 2 minutes daily for moments of silence, which students may not interfere with other students in this participation. And that moments of silence need to be shared with parents, and that a teacher may not make suggestions of how students should use this moment of silence. And in feedback from some students and from some teachers, I know from what I understand from the feedback is that schools are doing it differently. So some schools may do the 2 minutes after the pledge, some do it before the pledge. And some suggestion is to keep it consistent before the pledge, because after the pledge, kids are already standing and they're talking, and it's hard to get them to settle down again. Whereas if you do it before the pledge, they're quiet, they're silent, and then they go into the pledge and then all the announcements. So sharing that information publicly, Dr. Moore, it might be a little easier to handle it that way. I'm not sure how you want to handle it, but it seems to me to be an easy thing to address. Also, a reminder that September is American Founders Month, that the month of September for each year shall be designated as American Founders Month. Instruction related to our nation's founding fathers shall be provided to all grade levels in all schools, not just elementary, all grade levels. And a proclamation, Dr. Moore, shall be designated to the month of September as American Founders Month. So if we can start working on that, that's written in our policy. We can bring it back at our next meeting. We have a meeting in August. If we can bring that back in August so that then we can go into September with this proclamation, that would be awesome. Do you want to I saw you bring the microphone closer to you. Do you want to say anything?
No, I mean, we'll be fully compliant. We have a meeting with principals coming up where it's all things operational. We have a pretty comprehensive opening of school checklist to make sure everything that's procedurally required or through policy or statute is covered, posted, and that practice or process is in place. And then we as a team go and look for those things to make sure that we're inspecting what we expect.
Ms. Berenborn?
Yes, Dr. Jones?
Just thinking back about the pledge and the moment of silence, I've been in many schools at the beginning of the day, and there wasn't one that violated it. I'm just trying to think back on all my visits last year. They started with the pledge and then the moment of silence. Now, is there a rule that you have to do that way, or can it be the moment and then the pledge? The ones I listened to were pledge, moment of silence. There's not a law that which way you do it, is it? Am I wrong?
No.
I don't think so.
That I'm
Okay.
aware of it, and I think in all the campuses that I've been to, it's pledge, then moment.
And if I don't know, maybe an elementary principal wants to start, I don't know, maybe depending on the age level of the kids, the principal could decide what works is what I'm thinking, as long as we do both.
I have a question about the 2 minutes, and this is to our attorney. I thought I read somewhere it said up to 2 minutes, not 2 minutes.
I'm looking at our policy right now. The policy says, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, through the chair.
I just want clarification.
Looking at policy 8800, the principal of each public school shall require teachers in first period classrooms and elementary grades to set aside 1 minute and secondary schools to set aside 2 minutes daily for a moment of silence during which students may not interfere with other students' participation. There is nothing in here nothing that I'm aware of in statute and/or in our policy which requires one to be before the other, the pledge and/or the moment of silence.
But how about in statute, does it say 2 minutes or does it say up to 2 minutes? Because I think I saw that somewhere and I don't know if that was incorrect or correct.
If you'll hold, you can continue. I will look at the statute real quick.
Statute says up to.
That's what I thought. It says up to 2 minutes. It doesn't say 2 minute requirement. But we have it in our policy as 2 minutes.
You do.
So we have a higher standard than the statute. That's what I want to get. Okay.
It's not higher.
It is.
It's
It
3.
says 2 minutes.
We,
It's not, doesn't say up to 2 minutes, it says 2 minutes. In other words, they have to do it for 2 minutes, not up to 2 minutes. Correct?
Right.
Okay.
That's what your policy says.
Dr. Poskett?
I remember when we passed it.
Yep. Yep. That's why I said that, because I remembered it. And I was like, nope.
So the
We
last,
talked about that.
so the last reminder, Dr. Moore, is Celebration Freedom Week. That is the last full week of class in September, recognized as Celebration Freedom Week, and the instruction will include the study of the intent, meaning, and the importance of the Declaration of Independence. During that week, principals and teachers will lead students in reciting at a minimum, not a maximum, at a minimum, a portion of the Declaration of Independence. And that, again, is for all students, not just 8th graders.
Okay, moving on to H, parental, or parents' rights and teachers' rights.
All right, and then on this one, this I put on here because we all, I keep saying we all received it. I don't know if you all received it, but the Commissioner of
H,
Which last one?
H, this is parents' rights and teachers' rights.
Okay?
The Commissioner of Education, I didn't put the teachers' rights up here. The Commissioner of Education, Anastasios Kamatsas, I always forget how to pronounce his name. Did I pronounce it right? I did? Okay. He issued a statement to all, a letter to all Florida parents, which I love, just advising them of their rights as parents and that they have the right to the upbringing and the decision-making of, and the education and well-being of their children. And that in addition, there are parent resources which are on here, on the agenda as web links, but they are here for all parents in case they haven't seen the letter, but they're looking at the agenda, and that these resources will help parents in case they have any questions on their rights. If they have to file a complaint, there's information there about filing a complaint, and how they can implement a special magistrate if that is needed. So all of their rights are there. And also for school superintendents, there was a letter that went to school superintendents for the same, reminding superintendents of a parent's right in education, including the powers and duties of school board members with regard to this, transparency with school materials. And I did have a question about one thing that was on there, requiring the department to publish and regularly update a list of materials that were removed. Now, I know we update, or we were supposed to have, all of our approved curriculum on websites, on our website, but do we also put the items that have been removed? That I don't think we do. I haven't seen it.
We're required to send on an annual basis to the state, which we have done, and the list for all counties who had all materials or books removed has been published. So if that's what it's referencing, then yes.
See, I'm not sure. I guess this is a question for Ms. Enville. So the first bullet states requiring that each elementary school publish on its website in searchable format a list of all materials maintained in the school library media center. And then the next bullet says requiring the department to publish and regularly update. So my question, I guess, was, is that to publish the removed or discontinued items as a result of an objection on our website?
I think it's referring to.
Because where else would we publish it?
Yeah.
And this was addressed to superintendent, so is that something you can look into, Ms. Enville?
We're
Please?
looking now. I think it's on there. I just don't know how to find it. But
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I've seen it on there.
Okay,
before.
all right, and if we're not, can you let us know that we're, okay, thank you. And then also very important is reinforcing parents' rights with regard to instructional materials, required topics, professional learning aligned with the principles of individual freedom. And all of those items should be on our website. Everything should be on our website, should be provided for parents. I think in this charge for superintendents, they're supposed to make sure that parents receive this information, not just get it on a Facebook page. So, Dr. Moore, what are we doing to get all of the information out to parents in terms of their rights in education?
So
Other than
the
Facebook.
letter is on our website. It was posted on social. When you go, it was pushed on Focus as a notification. So when you go on to Focus, it will be there. It's been added into the registration packet, which is released, that requires you to fill out all of those things. It's there. And then when you transition into moving away from the opening of schools and into enrollment, it will be part of the enrollment package. So whether you're enrolling now, everyone has to go on Focus, and when you go on Focus, you're going to get it. Then when you go on to do your opening of schools package, you're going to get it. And if you're coming in after the 10th day and you're enrolling, you're going to get it. So we've been extremely proactive in making sure that information is available to our parents as requested.
Excellent. We were one of the first districts who actually drafted a really good parental rights policy, so I'm very proud of that. I'm going to say that was back in 2021. Maybe that was the first draft, and since then, we've had many iterations of it, but it is solid, and I'm proud of that policy. So I'm glad that we're able to support parents where they are and provide them with the rights, with letting them know of their rights. So thank you for that information.
Any other board members want to comment? Dr. Jones?
Yeah, when I looked at this, it also had teacher rights, but I didn't see an attachment.
Oh, yes, you're right, sorry. So there are teacher rights, I apologize for not putting them up there. There are teacher rights that were
I was going to go over them.
presented, that were published, made, I'm going to say, let me pull it up.
It was part of his letter.
It was part, yeah, and I just don't. Here, Teacher's Bill of Rights. I'm going to say it's in statute 1015. And I just wanted to also ask the superintendent on this one, so thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Jones. What are we doing in terms of notifying teachers and of their rights according to the statute?
Same process. They'll have it on their own accounts Very similar process as with parents. So it'll be, we'll push it to them, and then when they come in, it'll be part of the materials that they receive for the opening of schools.
And is it part of training, and is it part of acknowledging to them the right to control the
Yep.
classroom and their
All the
right?
trainings they got to do, and yep.
Okay, thank you for that.
Anybody else?
On this topic?
Yes. That's our last topic. Mr. Dyer, did you want to add one? You can add
I
one
was just going to
tonight.
say, with as much follow-up and reminders as you need, I'm surprised that we've achieved the results that we have achieved in the school district. But it is amazing, and thank you for the progress the school district has made.
Just in talking about teachers, I know they come in next week, and I'll talk about this in my board member matters tonight, but I always told a teacher and I always told students, you have the right to teach, and no one has the right to disrupt it. It's real simple. So I want our teachers to understand that we support them. They have the direct classroom instruction, and they have a very, very challenging job to do, and we're here for them.
And on that note, also, children have the right to listen to the instruction and hear it.
That's right. No one has the right to disrupt.
All right, we are going to adjourn this meeting at 3:45.